The elder gods decreed balance eternal, but balance was never meant to account for outsiders. The sky above Outworld's western waste didn't split so much as *tier*, a wound in reality that bled purple lightning and screamed with the voices of 1,000 dying stars. The Tarkata scouts camping near the bone forest heard it first, a sound like metal scraping against the fabric of existence itself. Then came the light, searing and white, turning the perpetual crimson dusk into something that hurt to witness. When the rift collapsed, it took a chunk of sky with it. What remained was silence, smoke, and 6 craters burning in the sand. Lion-O woke choking on dust that tasted like copper and ash. His fingers found the Sword of Omens first, instinct before consciousness, and the familiar weight of the hilt brought clarity rushing back. The pursuit through Mum-Ra's pyramid, the portal spell gone catastrophically wrong, Cheetara's shout as the dimensional membrane shattered around them, then nothing but the sensation of falling through spaces that shouldn't exist. He pushed himself upright, every muscle screaming. The landscape stretched before him in shades of rust and bone, twisted rock formations like the fingers of buried giants, sand the color of dried blood, and a sky that hung too heavy, too close as if gravity itself was different here. The air tasted wrong, thick with something his Thunderian senses couldn't identify. Magic, but not the clean elemental force of Third Earth. This was magic that had fed on suffering. Cheetara, his voice cracked. Panthro Tigra. Nothing, just wind carrying the distant sound of something screaming. Lion-O raised the Sword of Omens, and the Eye of Thunder blazed to life. Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight. The vision hit him like a physical blow. He saw his team scattered across miles of hostile terrain. Cheetara's spotted form unconscious in a ravine, Panthro fighting something with too many arms, Tigra flickering in and out of visibility as he fled through ruins. But beneath those images came others, armies of walking corpses, a throne room built from fused skeletons, an emperor with a skull for a face raising a hammer that pulsed with stolen souls. And deeper still, a presence that noticed the sword's power, ancient, hungry, turning its attention toward Lion-O like a predator catching fresh scent. The vision released him and Lion-O staggered. The sword's eye dimmed, flickering in a way it never had before. What is this place? He didn't get to finish the thought. The sand exploded around him. They came from beneath, 6 Tarkata warriors erupting from tunnels Lion-O's senses hadn't detected, their arm blades already extended and gleaming with serrated fury. No war cries, no warnings, just the killing efficiency of ambush predators who'd done this 1,000 times before. Lion-O's body moved before his mind caught up. The Sword of Omens extended to full length as he spun, deflecting the first blade strike with a shower of sparks. His Thunderian speed gave him an edge. These creatures were fast, but he was faster. He ducked beneath a horizontal slash, felt the blade part the air where his skull had been, and drove his shoulder into the attacker's chest. The impact should have sent the warrior flying. Instead, Lion-O felt like he'd hit a stone wall. The Tarkata barely staggered. Up close, Lion-O could see its face, a nightmare fusion of humanoid and predator, mouth bristling with teeth that belonged in an ocean's darkest depths. Its eyes held no rage, no battle fury, just cold, practical murder. It smiled. The other 5 closed in. Lion-O swept the sword in a wide arc, forcing them back, but his arms felt leaden. The gravity here was wrong. Everything weighed more, including him. A blade caught his shoulder, shearing through the fabric of his suit and drawing first blood. Pain flared bright and immediate. "I don't want to hurt you," Lion-O shouted, knowing even as he said it how foolish it sounded. The Tarkata's laughter was a wet clicking sound. They attacked in concert now, coordinated, lethal. Lion-O parried, dodged, gave ground he couldn't afford to lose. His training screamed at him, "Disable, don't kill." The Thundercat Code demanded it. But these warriors fought with the assumption that every exchange ended in death. His mercy was just another opening to exploit. A blade pierced his thigh. Lion-O roared and brought the sword down in a desperate strike that shattered the weapon arm at its root. The Tarkata screamed, a sound of fury, not pain, and lunged with its remaining blade. Lion-O caught it with the flat of his sword and pushed, channeling every ounce of Thunderian strength into the shove. This time, the warrior flew backward into a rock formation with bone-cracking force. It didn't get up. The other 5 paused. Something shifted in their tactical assessment. They spread out, circling, and Lion-O realized with cold certainty that his moment of victory had just made things worse. They'd been testing him. Now they knew his capabilities. Now they'd stop holding back. The largest Tarkata, nearly 7 feet of corded muscle and scarred hide, stepped forward. It spoke in a language Lion-O didn't understand, guttural and sharp, then switched to something closer to human speech. "You fight well, *cat. Baraka will enjoy your skull." Before Lion-O could respond, the creature raised its blade arms and drove them into the sand. The ground rippled. More Tarkata emerged from tunnels Lion-O hadn't seen, 10, 15, 20. They surrounded him in concentric rings of razor-edged death. Lion-O raised the Sword of Omens again, calling on the Eye of Thunder's power. Sword of Omens. The vision that came was wrong. Instead of clarity, Lion-O saw contradictory images layered over each other, the Tarkata as they were, but also as corpses, as souls being harvested, as warriors serving a dozen different masters simultaneously. The eye showed him truth, but here truth was fractured into incompatible pieces. The sword's power sputtered and died. The lead Tarkata's smile widened. "Your magic is broken here, Cat. This is Outworld. Your gods have no power in the Emperor's realm." They moved as one. Lion-O fought like his life depended on it, because it did. The Sword of Omens became a whirlwind of steel, each strike precise despite his growing exhaustion. He used the terrain, keeping rock formations at his back, forcing the Tarkata to come at him in smaller groups. His feline agility let him leap over strikes and twist through gaps that shouldn't exist. But there were too many, and they were tireless. A blade opened his back. Another caught his arm. Lion-O's vision began to blur at the edges, blood loss and exhaustion creating a dangerous combination. He dropped to one knee, the sword suddenly impossibly heavy. "This is how I die," he thought with strange clarity. "Alone. In a realm I don't understand, fighting warriors I can't reason with." The Thundercat Code had no provisions for this. The lead Tarkata raised its blade for the killing strike. "The Emperor will be pleased. Fresh souls for Shang Tsung, and a pretty sword for Shao Kahn's collection." Then the air moved. A figure in blue and white materialized between Lion-O and death, a man in a conical hat wreathed in crackling electricity. He raised one hand, and lightning arced from his fingertips into the lead Tarkata, sending it convulsing backward. The scent of ozone and burned flesh filled the air. Enough, the word carried absolute authority. The Tarkata scattered like startled scavengers, retreating into their tunnels with shocking speed. Within seconds, only Lion-O and the stranger remained. The man turned, and Lion-O met eyes that glowed with barely contained power. This was no human, despite the form. This was something older, something that existed on a level Lion-O instinctively recognized as divine asterisk. "I am Raiden, god of thunder and protector of Earthrealm," the stranger said. His voice was calm but edged with concern. "And you, warrior, have arrived in the worst possible place at the worst possible time." Lion-O tried to stand and failed. His wounds were catching up with him. Raiden caught him before he fell. "Your companions are scattered across Outworld. Some have already been captured, others fight for survival, and your arrival has been noticed by powers far more dangerous than Tarkata scavengers." I need to find them, Lion-O managed. You need to survive Asterisk, Raiden corrected. This realm is Outworld, domain of the Emperor Shao Kahn. You and your warriors have entered a dimension governed by ancient laws, laws written in blood and enforced through conquest. The tournament that safeguards your realm of origin has been fulfilled, but Shao Kahn seeks any excuse to begin another invasion. Lion-O's hand tightened on the Sword of Omens. We didn't mean to come here. It was an accident. Intention matters little to the Emperor. Your presence is an asterisk violation of realm boundaries. Shao Kahn will declare you illegal combatants, warriors who entered Outworld outside the sacred Mortal Kombat tournament. Raiden's expression darkened. He will use you as justification to attack Earthrealm ahead of schedule. Unless what? Unless you submit to the Emperor's law, face his champions in ritual combat, prove your worth through bloodshed, or be consumed by his armies. Every instinct Lion-O possessed screamed in rejection. The Thundercats didn't fight for entertainment. They protected the innocent, upheld justice, defended those who couldn't defend themselves. But looking at the blood-soaked sand, remembering the cold efficiency of the Tarkata, Lion-O realized with growing horror that his understanding of combat had just become desperately obsolete. What about my team? Kitana, a princess in exile, has extracted 2 of your warriors. They are safe for now in her hidden stronghold, but she seeks to use them in her rebellion against Shao Kahn. Your arrival has accelerated political forces that were meant to remain dormant for months yet. Raiden's hand crackled with restrained lightning. Another of your warriors fights Reptile in the ruins of the Jade Temple. That battle will end in death if we do not intervene soon. And your leader, the one with orange fur and mechanical weapons, has been taken to Baraka's war camp. He faces trial by combat at dawn. Lion-O felt the weight of command settling over him like chains. Scattered across a hostile realm, his team facing impossible odds, and the only ally offering help was a god who spoke of sacred tournaments and blood laws as if they were natural forces. If you want to see more characters thrown into the Mortal Kombat universe, subscribe and comment which fighter you want next, Raiden said, and Lion-O realized the god hadn't spoken at all. The words came from elsewhere, from some omniscient narrator beyond the veil of reality itself, addressing an audience Lion-O couldn't perceive. The moment passed. Raiden was simply looking at him, waiting for a decision. Save Panthro first, Lion-O said. Then we find the others, then we get out of this realm. It won't be that simple, Raiden warned. It never is, Lion-O replied, forcing himself to stand despite the pain. The Sword of Omens blazed back to life, responding to his will if not his command for visions. But I didn't become Lord of the Thundercats by accepting impossible odds. Raiden's expression might have been a smile. Then you'll fit right in. Welcome to Mortal Kombat, Lion-O of Thundera. Try not to die in the next 24 hours. Your realm and mine may depend on it. Lightning enveloped them both. The wasteland vanished, replaced by the sensation of hurtling through space at impossible speeds. Lion-O caught fractured glimpses of the realm as they traveled. Cities built from skulls, arenas soaked in centuries of blood, a palace that pulsed with dark magic like a beating heart of conquest. And somewhere in that nightmare realm, his team fought for survival against forces they couldn't understand. The Thundercats had entered Mortal Kombat. The realms would never be the same. Panthro woke in chains. Not rope or cord, asterisk chains asterisk. Heavy iron links that wrapped his wrists and ankles with enough weight to anchor a ship. They hung from a wooden frame in the center of what appeared to be a war camp, the kind of temporary settlement built by armies that expected to move at dawn. Tarkata warriors moved between hide tents, sharpening their arm blades on whetstones that screamed with each pass. The sound set Panthro's teeth on edge. His nunchaku were gone, his spiked bracers stripped. Even his utility belt had been removed with surgical precision. They'd left him his blue suit, probably because removing it would have required cutting through Thunderian smart fabric, and these warriors seemed more interested in keeping their prize intact. Prize? Panthro tested the chains. Solid construction, heat-treated iron, probably enchanted given how they seemed to resist his Thunderian strength. Whoever built these knew how to contain meta-level threats. "You wait quickly." The voice came from shadows at the tent's edge. A figure stepped into the firelight, and Panthro's enhanced night vision captured every detail. Humanoid frame wrapped in leather and bone armor, face that was more predator than person, arm blades that extended from the forearms like natural weapons. The creature's eyes held cold intelligence. "I am Baraka, War Master of the Tarkata Legions." The words came with surprising clarity, accented but comprehensible. "You are Panthro, warrior of the Thundercats. We have been analyzing your equipment." Baraka gestured. Two smaller Tarkata emerged carrying Panthro's nunchaku, handling the weapons with surprising reverence. Fascinating construction, metal alloy unknown to Outworld forges, weight distribution suggesting combat style emphasizing momentum and continuous strikes. Baraka's blade tips scraped together, a sound like knives kissing. "You are an craftsman as much as a warrior. This is unusual. The Tarkata respect strength, but we honor those who forge their own instruments of death." Panthro kept his expression neutral, years of tactical training overriding the instinct to respond. Let the enemy talk. Information was a weapon, and right now he had nothing else. Baraka circled the frame, studying Panthro like a predator assessing prey. "You arrived during the night patrol, fell from the sky wrapped in purple flame. My scouts brought you here rather than killing you outright." His lipless mouth twisted into something approximating a smile. "Emperor Shao Kahn has declared interest in all outsiders, especially those carrying unknown weapons and wearing strange armor. I don't suppose you'd believe this was an accident." Panthro's voice was steady despite the situation. "I believe many things. I believe you are far from home. I believe your companions are scattered across Outworld wastes. I believe Shang Tsung's sorcerers have already detected your presence and begun crafting soul traps." Baraka leaned closer, his breath reeking of raw meat. "What I don't believe is that your arrival is coincidence. Nothing enters Outworld by accident. The realm's barriers are absolute unless someone powerful wants them breached." Panthro's mind raced. Mumra's portal spell, the dimensional tear, Lion-O's shout as reality shattered around them. They'd been running, not invading, but explaining interdimensional pursuit by an ancient evil probably wouldn't help his case. "So what happens now?" Panthro asked. "You hand me over to this emperor." "Eventually." Baraka retrieved the nunchaku, testing the weight. "But the Tarkata have our own traditions. You are a warrior. You fell into our territory, not Shao Kahn's throne room. By Outworld law, you belong to whoever claims you first." The War Master's arm blades extended fully, nearly 2 feet of serrated death. "At dawn, you face Tarkata trial by combat. You unarmed against 3 of my warriors. If you survive, you earn the right to keep your weapons and your life. If you die," Baraka shrugged, "Shang Tsung collects another soul for his inventory. And if I refuse, then you die now and I deliver your corpse to the Emperor. At least trial by combat offers you dignity." Baraka's expression held something that might have been respect. "The Tarkata are not cruel. We are practical. Strong warriors deserve the chance to prove their strength. Weak warriors deserve death. This is the law of Outworld." Before Panthro could respond, a commotion erupted outside the tent. Shouts in that guttural Tarkata language, followed by the distinctive crack of discharged weapons. Panthro recognized the sound, energy-based, probably magical given the ambient power signature he could feel even through the tent walls. Baraka's head snapped toward the disturbance, blades rising. We are under attack. The tent flap exploded inward. A woman entered, moving at speeds that made Panthro's enhanced eyes struggle to track. Spotted fur, athletic build. A combat staff spinning in defensive patterns that deflected incoming blade strikes with contemptuous ease. She wore blue and yellow, her movements combining feline grace with disciplined martial training. Cheetara. Relief flooded through Panthro even as tactical awareness kicked in. Behind Cheetara came another figure, human female, Asian features, dressed in blue combat silk with steel fans holstered at her waist. She moved with the contained danger of an assassin who'd learned to kill before she learned to walk. Panthro, Cheetara's voice carried equal parts relief and urgency. We're extracting you. Don't fight me on this. 3 Tarkata guards rushed the tent. The woman in blue was suddenly their asterisk, fans deployed, each strike precise and lethal. The first guard dropped with a fan embedded in its throat. The second lost its blade arm at the shoulder, arterial spray painting the tent walls. The third managed a single strike before a fan opened its skull from temple to jaw. The killings took less than 3 seconds, clinical, efficient, utterly remorseless. Cheetara reached Panthro's chains, her staff's end glowing with contained energy. She struck the primary lock and the metal shattered like glass. We need to move. Kitana's resistance only bought us minutes. Wait, Panthro caught her arm as the chains fell away. Who is this? Where are Lionel and the others? Explanations during extraction, the woman Kitana said, retrieving her fans and wiping them clean with practiced efficiency. Baraka's war camp contains 200 Tarkata warriors. We have neutralized 63. The rest are mobilizing as we speak. Baraka hadn't moved. His blades remained extended, but he made no aggressive action. Instead, he watched Kitana with an expression Panthro couldn't quite read. Princess, Baraka said, the word carrying complex weight. This constitutes violation of Emperor Shao Kahn's decree. Interference with sanctioned combat trials is an act of rebellion. Add it to the list, Kitana replied, her tone arctic. The Emperor's decrees have been violations of Edenian law since he murdered my father. This warrior didn't ask to enter Outworld. He will not die for your Emperor's entertainment. He is Tarkata * prisoner. He is * breathing, Kitana interrupted. That is all that matters. Stand aside, Baraka. You know you cannot defeat me in single combat. The War Master's expression cycled through rage, calculation, and something that might have been grudging respect. You risk everything for outsiders. Why? Because Shao Kahn fears them, and anything the Emperor fears is a weapon I can use. Baraka's gaze shifted to Panthro. Warrior, you understand what this means. Accepting her rescue makes you part of Edenian rebellion. The Emperor will hunt you as insurgent, not intruder. Your trial by combat offered you honor *. This offers only endless war. Panthro grabbed his nunchaku from where they'd been discarded, the familiar weight singing in his hands. I've been fighting wars since before you were born, Baraka. One more doesn't scare me. It should, but the War Master stepped aside. When you die screaming in Shang Tsung's flesh pits, remember that I offered you a warrior's death. Cheetara's hand found Panthro's shoulder. We run, now. They exploded from the tent into controlled chaos. The war camp had become a battlefield, Tarkata warriors engaging a mixed force of what Panthro's tactical mind identified as guerrilla fighters. Human mostly, but a few showed Outworld heritage, gray skin, extra arms, facial structures that suggested non-human ancestry. They fought with desperate coordination, every action designed to create escape corridors rather than kill zones. This way, Kitana led them through a gap in the perimeter. Panthro registered guard towers collapsing, probably sabotaged before the assault. Smart tactical planning. Whoever commanded this resistance understood combined arms doctrine. They ran through the Outworld night, Cheetara's natural speed, Panthro's conditioned endurance, and Kitana's supernatural grace covering ground at a pace that would have killed human soldiers. Behind them, Tarkata war horns sounded, their keening wail promising pursuit and vengeance. The landscape blurred, more bone-colored sand, more twisted rock formations, and then suddenly they were descending into a canyon system that seemed to appear from nowhere. Illusion magic, Panthro realized, camouflage sophisticated enough to fool aerial reconnaissance. They entered a cave mouth hidden behind a waterfall of what looked like water but smelled like mineral spirits. Inside, the resistance stronghold revealed itself. A natural cavern system expanded through engineering and magic, lit by crystalline formations that pulsed with soft blue light. Warriors tended weapons, healers worked on wounded, and in the center of it all, a tactical command center that would have impressed special forces back on Third Earth. And there, standing beside a holographic projection table, stood another familiar figure. Tigra, Panthro's relief was genuine. The orange-striped Thundercat looked exhausted, his suit torn and bloodied but alive. He turned at Panthro's voice, and the expression on his face was pure gratitude. "Thank the gods." Tigra crossed the distance in 3 strides, clasping Panthro's shoulder. "I thought you were dead. I thought we were all dead." "Status report," Panthro said, defaulting to tactical protocol because emotion was a luxury they couldn't afford. "Lion-O's alive. Raiden extracted him from a Tarkata ambush. They're en route here now. The others." Tigra's expression darkened. "I don't know the twins, Snarf. I lost track during the arrival. This realm, Panthro, it's wrong asterisk. The physics, the magic, even the way time flows. My invisibility barely works. The architecture responds to intention rather than structural engineering. And the people." "Kill without hesitation," Panthro finished. "I noticed." Kitana approached, her fans folded but still in hand. "Welcome to Outworld, Panthro of the Thundercats. I am Kitana, Princess of Edenia, leader of the resistance against Emperor Shao Kahn's tyranny. Your arrival has accelerated a conflict 10,000 years in the making." "We didn't mean to intrude," Panthro said carefully. "Our entry was accidental, if there's a way home." "There isn't." A new voice cut through the cavern, and Panthro turned to see another woman approaching. She wore green, her beauty striking but her eyes carrying the weight of ancient sorrow. "I am Jade, Kitana's bodyguard and tactical advisor. We have analyzed the dimensional tier that brought you here. It collapsed upon itself. The energies required to recreate such a breach would take months to gather, and would require cooperation from Shao Kahn's sorcerers." "Which will never happen," Kitana added. "The Emperor views you as weapons. He will either claim you for his armies or destroy you to prevent others from claiming you first." Panthro's tactical mind assessed the situation with cold clarity. Stranded in hostile territory. No clear extraction route. Local politics treating them as strategic assets rather than people. And somewhere in this nightmare realm, Lion-O trying to hold the team together while operating with incomplete information. "What do you want from us?" Panthro asked bluntly. Kitana's expression hardened. "Shao Kahn murdered my father, Emperor Gerard, and claimed my mother as his bride. He has twisted Edenia from a realm of beauty into a tributary state feeding Outworld's war machine. For 10,000 years I have planned, gathered allies, waited for the perfect moment to strike." She gestured to the holographic table which displayed a complex map of what Panthro assumed was Outworld. Territories marked in red, blue, and contested purple. Strategic choke points, army positions, a war map. "Your arrival changes everything," Kitana continued. "Shao Kahn has declared you illegal combatants, warriors who entered Outworld outside Mortal Kombat protocols. He will use this as justification to accelerate his invasion of Earthrealm, claiming the tournament rules are void if foreign powers can simply appear in his realm." "That's insane," Tigra protested. "We're victims of circumstance." Legality in Outworld is whatever Shao Kahn declares it to be, Jade said quietly. The Emperor needs no real justification. Your presence is simply convenient. Cheetara had been silent since the extraction, but now she spoke, her voice carrying the weight of her precognitive sixth sense. I see blood, oceans of it. Not our blood, asterisk everyone's asterisk blood. This Emperor, he's planning something massive. Invasion, Kitana confirmed. But with your help, we can prevent it. The Resistance has assets throughout Outworld, informants in Shao Kahn's palace, agents within the Tarkata legions, even sympathizers among the Shakan warrior clans. With warriors of your capabilities, we can strike at the Emperor's infrastructure before he can mobilize. Panthro felt the trap closing. They needed these people to survive. These people needed them to rebel. And somewhere in the middle, political forces were maneuvering to use the Thundercats as unwitting pawns in a conflict they barely understood. We're not mercenaries, Panthro said carefully. The Thundercats protect the innocent. We don't take sides in civil wars. This isn't a civil war, Kitana's voice turned sharp. This is resistance against a tyrant who has consumed entire realms. Shao Kahn has merged hundreds of dimensions into Outworld, killing trillions. He maintains power through ritual combat that turns justice into bloodsport. He harvests souls to fuel his immortality. The cave fell silent. Panthro exchanged glances with Tigra and Cheetara. The Thundercat Code was absolute. Protect the innocent, fight for justice, never abuse power. But how did that code apply when every option led to violence? When mercy might enable genocide? We need to talk to Lion-O, Panthro finally said. Team decisions require team consensus. Agreed, Kitana said. Raiden's lightning path should deliver him within the hour. Until then, rest. Heal. We have Outworld healers who can treat your wounds with magic your bodies will accept. As if summoned by mention of his name, thunder rolled through the cavern, not natural sound but pure elemental force. Lightning blazed in the central chamber, coalescing into two figures, Raiden, god of thunder, and Lion-O, looking half-dead but still gripping the Sword of Omens with white-knuckled determination. Panthro, Lion-O's voice cracked with relief. He stumbled forward and Panthro caught him before he collapsed. Up close, the Lord of the Thundercats looked like he'd been through a meat grinder, cuts, bruises, blood loss that should have killed him. Easy, Lion-O, I've got you. The others, Lion-O gasped. Tigra's here, Cheetara extracted me, the rest, we don't know yet. Raiden stepped forward, his presence radiating controlled power. This is Kitana's stronghold, one of the few places in Outworld where Shao Kahn's surveillance cannot reach. You are safe here, temporarily asterisk. What does that mean? Lion-O asked. It means the Emperor knows you exist, Raiden said grimly. Worse, Shang Tsung knows. And the sole sorcerer wants your sword. Lion-O, the Eye of Thundera registers to Outworld magic as a repository of thousands of souls. Your ancestors, bound to the gem through ancient Thunderian rituals. Lion-O's hand tightened on the sword. It's not souls, it's legacy, memory, the wisdom of those who came before. Distinctions without difference in Outworld, Jade interjected. Shang Tsung will see only power to be harvested. He will hunt you relentlessly. Let him try, Lion-O said, his voice gaining strength despite his injuries. The Sword of Omens cannot be taken by force. It answers only to the Lord of the Thundercats. Then Shang Tsung will kill you and wait for the next Lord to claim it, Kitana said bluntly. This is Outworld. Everything can be taken by force. Everything asterisk. Lion-O pushed himself upright, leaning on the sword like a cane. Where I come from, we have a code. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We fight for justice. We never kill the defeated, and we never abandon those in need. Kitana's expression was unreadable. Your code will get you killed here, possibly within days. Maybe, Lion-O admitted, but it's who we are. The Thundercats don't compromise on principle just because the situation is difficult. He looked around the cavern, at the resistance fighters nursing wounds, at the makeshift medical stations, at the faces of people who'd been fighting a losing war for millennia. But, Lion-O continued, his voice gaining the command presence that had made him leader, we also don't abandon people suffering under tyranny. If what you say about this emperor is true, if he really is a dimensional conqueror who harvests souls and enslaves realms, then the Thundercats will stand against him. On our asterisk terms, Panthro added firmly. We'll help your resistance. We'll fight Shao Kahn's forces, but we don't execute prisoners, we don't torture for information, and we don't compromise on protecting civilian populations. Those are non-negotiables. Kitana studied them for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. Your code is naive, impractical, and will probably get you killed. But it's also the first genuinely honorable thing I've heard in Outworld in centuries. She extended her hand. We have an accord, Lion-O of Thundera. The resistance will help you find your missing companions and eventually return home. In exchange, you help us strike at Shao Kahn's infrastructure. Lion-O clasped her hand. Agreed. But Kitana, we're not weapons, we're warriors, there's a difference. We shall see, Kitana replied. Jade, show them to the guest quarters. They need rest before the real war begins. As the Thundercats followed Jade deeper into the cave system, Raiden's voice echoed in Lion-O's mind, a telepathic whisper that bypassed physical sound entirely. You have made powerful allies, Lord of Thundercats, but also powerful enemies. Shao Kahn now knows of your existence. Shang Tsung hungers for your souls, and Quan Kai, a necromancer even more dangerous than Shang Tsung, has taken interest in your sword's unique properties. Mortal Kombat is coming. Lion-O and you are now part of its eternal dance of death. The telepathic link severed. Lion-O said nothing, but his hand tightened on the Sword of Omens. Thunder and honor were about to collide. An Outworld would burn from the impact. The guest quarters were carved from living crystal that pulsed with soft luminescence, beautiful and alien in equal measure. Panthro ran his fingers along the walls, his engineer's mind cataloging properties that shouldn't exist. Stone that generated light without heat, structural integrity that defied load-bearing mathematics, and a faint harmonic resonance that suggested the entire cave system was somehow asterisk alive. This realm breaks every physical law I understand, he muttered. Tigra sat cross-legged on one of the crystalline benches, his whip coiled in his lap. It's not just physics. The magic here is fundamentally different. On Third Earth, magic follows rules, elemental affinities, conservation of energy, balance between creation and destruction. Here, he gestured vaguely. Here, magic is transactional asterisk. Every spell has a cost measured in suffering. Lion-O stood at the chamber's edge, the Sword of Omens planted before him like a sentinel. His wounds had been treated by Kitana's healers, women in gray robes who'd used poultices that smelled like burning copper and chanted in languages that made Lion-O's teeth ache. The injuries had closed, but he could still feel them, phantom pains that reminded him how close to death he'd come. Cheetara paced, her natural speed making her movement seem like flickering afterimages. We can't stay here. Every minute in this stronghold puts these people at risk. Baraka knows we're with Kitana's resistance now. He'll report to this emperor and then Shao Kahn will have justification to crush the rebellion, Lion-O finished. I know. Raiden explained the political situation during our travel here. He turned to face his team, his expression carrying the weight of leadership. We're in an impossible position. If we leave the resistance, we lose our only allies in Outworld. If we stay, we become weapons in a civil war. It's not civil war when one side is fighting genocide. A new voice interjected. They turned to find Jade standing in the crystalline doorway, her green combat silks blending with the ambient light. Behind her stood another figure, male, human appearing but with cybernetic implants visible at his temples and forearms. He wore black combat gear marked with strange insignia, a dragon coiled around a blade. "This is Cabal," Jade said. "Former Black Dragon mercenary, current resistance speed fighter. He has information about your missing companions." Cabal stepped forward, moving with the coiled efficiency of a career soldier. The twins, WilyKit and WilyKat, were captured by Kano's Black Dragon clan approximately 6 hours ago. They're being held in a supply depot near the Kitana border, probably intended as trade goods. Lion-O's hand tightened on the sword. Trade goods. "The Black Dragon deal in weapons, information, and slaves," Cabal said flatly. "2 exotic cat children with unknown capabilities. Kano will sell them to the highest bidder, probably Shao Kahn directly, though Shang Tsung might make a competing offer." Rage flared in Lion-O's chest. "Clean and righteous and asterisk dangerous asterisk. Where is this depot?" 3 hours forced march through hostile territory," Jade answered. "But Lion-O, you need to understand something. The Black Dragon aren't Tarkata warriors operating on instinct. They're professional criminals who have survived in Outworld by being smarter, meaner, and more ruthless than everyone else. Kano has killed hundreds of Earthrealm Special Forces soldiers. He won't hesitate to use your companions as hostages." "Then we extract them before he gets the chance," Panthro said, his tactical mind already working angles. "Standard hostage rescue, infiltration, neutralization of guards, secure the assets, extract via predetermined route." "You make it sound simple," Cabal said with dark amusement. "It won't be. The depot is a converted Shokan fortress, 30-foot walls, watchtowers, and Kano's best mercenaries on rotation. Plus, he's got tech from Earthrealm and Outworld merged into hybrid defense systems. Motion sensors that detect heartbeats through stone. Automated turrets loaded with soul-tipped ammunition." Tigra leaned forward, soul-tipped. "Bullets enchanted by Shang Tsung's sorcerers," Jade explained. "They don't just kill the body, they asterisk trap the soul, preventing resurrection or escape to the afterlife. Kano uses them on high-value targets." The chamber fell silent. Lion-O processed the information with growing horror. In Third Earth, death was terrible but comprehensible. Here, death could be worse than oblivion. It could be eternal imprisonment, conscious suffering without end. "I don't care how fortified his depot is," Lion-O said quietly. "We're getting the twins back, tonight." "Alone?" Jade's tone was skeptical. "4 of you against an entire mercenary installation." "We've faced worse odds," Cheetara said, though her voice carried doubt. Her sixth sense was screaming warnings, futures branching into violence and blood, paths where they succeeded and paths where they died screaming. "You'll have support," Kitana announced, entering the chamber with Raiden at her side. The princess carried herself with renewed purpose, tactical determination replacing political calculation. "Jade and Cabal will accompany you. I would lead the assault myself, but my presence would constitute an act of open war. Shao Kahn would use it as justification to execute my mother." "Your mother?" Lion-O asked. Kitana's expression turned to carved stone. "Queen Sindel, Shao Kahn's wife asterisk. He holds her as hostage and leverage, ensuring my compliance. If I move against him too overtly, he kills her. This is the cage I have lived in for 10,000 years." The weight of that statement hung in the air. 10,000 years of enforced obedience, of watching a tyrant rule while holding your mother's life as ransom. Lion-O understood hostage situations, but the scale asterisk, millennia of captivity, was beyond his comprehension. "We'll be careful," Lion-O promised. "No unnecessary risks." Raiden stepped forward, lightning crackling around his hands. "Before you leave, Lord Lion-O, there is something you must understand about the Sword of Omens. My divine senses have analyzed its structure during our travel here. The weapon is remarkable and dangerous." "Dangerous how?" The Eye of Thundera contains what you call ancestral memory, the preserved consciousness of Thunderian elders, bound to the gem through rituals lost when your homeworld fell. Raiden's eyes glowed with barely restrained power. But in Outworld, consciousness and souls are functionally identical. The sword reads to local magic as a phylactery, a soul prison of the type Shang Tsung and Quan Kai create to achieve immortality. Lion-O felt cold dread settling in his stomach. Are you saying my ancestors are trapped? No, they reside in the sword voluntarily, offering guidance through your sight beyond sight ability. But Outworld sorcerers cannot distinguish between willing residence and imprisonment. To them, the Eye of Thundera is the greatest soul harvest in 10,000 years, thousands of ancient, powerful souls concentrated in a single gem. Shang Tsung will never stop hunting you, Kitana added. Neither will Quan Kai. Both sorcerers have spent millennia harvesting souls to fuel their immortality and power. The sword represents a shortcut to godhood. Panthro's engineering mind saw the tactical implications immediately. So the sword is both our greatest asset and our biggest liability. It gives Lion-O power but paints a target on his back. Precisely, Raiden confirmed. I can offer limited protection, divine wards that will hide the sword's signature temporarily, but prolonged use of sight beyond sight will broadcast your location to every soul sorcerer in Outworld. Use it sparingly. Use it wisely. The god of thunder raised his hands and lightning wove intricate patterns around the Sword of Omens. The eye dimmed, its usual brilliant glow moving to a soft amber. Lion-O felt the change immediately. The weapon's power was still there, but quieter asterisk, like a shout reduced to a whisper. This ward will last perhaps 3 days, Raiden said. After that, you will be fully visible to Shang Tsung's scrying. Find your companions and determine your path quickly. What about the others? Tigra asked. Snarf, if Kid and Cat were captured, where is he? Cabal shifted uncomfortably. We don't know. Our scouts found traces of his presence near the Lava Shrine, a temple complex controlled by the Lin Kuei assassin clan. But the trail went cold. Either he's hiding, captured, or dead, Jade finished bluntly. The Lin Kuei are not mercenaries like the Black Dragon. They are warrior monks devoted to absolute perfection in assassination. If they captured your companion, he's either being interrogated or has already been eliminated. Lion-O's jaw tightened. Snarf, annoying, cowardly, loyal Snarf who'd followed them through dimensional collapse despite his terror. The thought of the small creature alone in this nightmare realm, surrounded by professional killers. One mission at a time, Panthro said, reading Lion-O's expression. We extract Kit and Cat first, then we find Snarf. Trying to split our forces in hostile territory is suicide. Lion-O wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed to find all his people now asterisk, to never leave anyone behind. But Panthro was right. Tactical discipline demanded prioritization, even when every choice felt like abandonment. We leave in 1 hour, Lion-O decided. Jade, Cabal show us the approach routes. I want 3 extraction plans, optimal, compromise, and worst case. Panthro, assess the depot's defenses and find weak points. Tigra, your invisibility might be compromised here, but test it. We need to know its limitations. Cheetara. I'll scout the perimeter once we're close, she finished. My speed should let me map the installation before they can respond. Jade nodded approvingly. You think like soldiers. Good. You'll need that to survive what's coming. 2 hours later, they crouched in the shadow of a massive rock formation overlooking Kano's depot. The fortress squatted in a valley like a tumor, black stone walls covered in scorch marks and dried blood, watchtowers topped with what looked like human skulls fused into the architecture. Floodlights swept the perimeter in overlapping patterns, eliminating blind spots with mechanical precision. Cheetara returned from her reconnaissance run, barely winded despite having circled the entire installation at superhuman speed. 37 mercenaries on active duty, another 20 sleeping in barracks, automated turrets at each corner. They track heat signatures, not just motion. And there's something in the central courtyard, a cage heavily guarded. The twins, Lion-O breathed. Probably, but Lion-O, the guards aren't human. They're Shao Kahn. Panthro's expression darkened. What's a Shao Kahn? Jade pulled out a small crystal that projected a holographic image, a massive humanoid with 4 arms, standing easily 12 feet tall, muscles like corded steel. Shao Kahn are Outworld's warrior elite, 4-armed giants bred for combat. 1 Shao Kahn warrior equals 5 human soldiers in pure combat capability. And Kano has 6 of them guarding the twins' cage, Cheetara added. Tigra tested his invisibility, phasing in and out of visibility. The effect was unstable. He flickered like a bad hologram, barely achieving translucency. My camouflage is compromised. I can maybe manage 30 seconds of partial invisibility before the strain becomes too much. The approach is the problem, Panthro said, studying the depot through Outworld binoculars Jade had provided. Those floodlights eliminate shadow-based infiltration. The walls are smooth, no handholds for climbing, and if we trigger those soul-tipped turrets, we die permanently, Cabell finished. Yeah, Kano's paranoid. Comes from surviving as long as he has in this business. Lion-O studied the fortress, tactical training warring with desperate urgency. They needed a plan that didn't rely on powers compromised by Outworld's metaphysics. No magical solutions, just skill, coordination, and the Sword of Omens pulsed once against his back. Lion-O drew the weapon, feeling Raiden's ward suppress most of its signature. But even muted, the sword responded to his need. Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight. Asterisk limited scan asterisk, 30 seconds only. The eye blazed and vision expanded. Lion-O saw through stone walls into the depot's interior. Kit and Kat huddled in a cage that hummed with suppression magic, terrified but unharmed. He saw Kano, a human with a cybernetic eye, counting currency while cleaning a curved blade. He saw the Shao Kahn guards, massive and disciplined, patrolling in overlapping patterns. And he saw the weak point, a waste disposal chute on the fortress's eastern wall, too small for Shao Kahn or adult humans, but large enough for Thundercats trained in urban infiltration. The vision released him. Lion-O gasped, feeling Raiden's ward strain and crack. Somewhere in Outworld, a sorcerer had just detected that pulse of power. We're compromised, Jade said, her hand moving to her combat staff. That scan just broadcast your location. We have maybe 15 minutes before Shang Tsung's scouts arrive. Then we finish this in 10, Lion-O said. He outlined the plan quickly. Cheetara and Tigra threw the waste chute to extract the twins while Lion-O, Panthro, Jade, and Cabell created a diversion at the main gate. Hit hard, hit fast, and disappear before reinforcements arrived. That's insane, Cabell said. The diversion team will be facing the entire mercenary force. Not if we're smart about it, Panthro countered. He pulled out his nunchaku, examining the weapons with an engineer's eye. Jade, those combat staffs of yours, do they generate kinetic force or magical energy? Kinetic, amplified through Edenian martial arts. Good, Cabell, your speed. How does it compare to Cheetara's? Close, but she's got the edge in pure velocity. I compensate with experience. Panthro's smile was predatory. Then here's what we do. The diversion began with thunder. Panthro's nunchaku, modified on the fly with crystalline resonators from Kitana's armory, struck the fortress gates with force that sang asterisk. The impact resonated through the stone, creating harmonic feedback that set every metal object in the depot ringing like tuning forks. The gates didn't break, they shattered, exploding inward in a spray of fragmenting steel. Knock, knock, Panthro roared, charging through the opening with Jade at his side. The Black Dragon mercenaries responded with professional discipline. Weapons up, firing lines established, overlapping fields of fire that should have shredded the attackers in seconds. Except Jade was already moving. Her staff became a whirlwind of deflected bullets, each strike precise enough to redirect projectiles back toward their sources. Mercenaries dropped screaming, taken down by their own ammunition. Cabal blurred into motion, his speed creating afterimages that confused targeting sensors. He moved through the mercenary lines like a scythe through wheat, not killing, but disabling. Shattered kneecaps, broken weapon hands, concussions delivered with surgical precision. Lion-O entered last, the Sword of Omens blazing despite Raiden's failing ward. "I am Lion-O, Lord of the Thundercats. Your prisoner-taking ends tonight." A Shao Kahn warrior stepped forward, 12 feet of muscle and fury, each of its 4 arms wielding a different weapon. "You are small cat, and small things break easily." The giant attacked with devastating coordination, 4 weapons striking from impossible angles simultaneously. Lion-O parried the first 2 strikes, dodged the third, and took the fourth across his shoulder, a glancing blow that still hit like a sledgehammer. He rolled with the impact, using Thunderian agility to stay mobile. Panthro pattern Gamma. Panthro didn't respond verbally, just shifted his attack vector. The 2 Thundercats moved in practice synchronization, a combat drill they'd perfected over years. Lion-O drew the Shao Kahn's attention high while Panthro attacked low. Nunchaku strikes targeting knee joints with bone-breaking force. The Shao Kahn roared and backhanded Panthro 20 feet into a wall, but the damage was done. The giant's left leg buckled, mobility compromised. Meanwhile, on the fortress's eastern side, Cheetara and Tigra emerged from the waste chute into the detention area. The twins' cage sat in a chamber guarded by 2 mercenaries, human, thankfully, not Shao Kahn. Cheetara moved at speeds that made her invisible to human perception. The first guard dropped unconscious before his nervous system could register the strike. The second managed to raise his weapon before Tigra's whip snared the barrel, yanking it from his grip. A follow-up strike to the temple, and he joined his companion in forced sleep. "Kit Kat," Cheetara's voice was urgent but controlled. The twins pressed against the cage bars, their young faces showing terror and relief in equal measure. "Cheetara, how did you? Where's Lion-O? Is everyone okay?" "Questions later. We're extracting you now." Cheetara examined the cage's lock, sophisticated enchantment work, probably keyed to Kano's specific magical signature. Tigra stepped forward, studying the lock with an architect's eye. "The enchantment flows through crystalline matrices embedded in the metal, if I can disrupt the pattern." His whip, modified with Thunderian tech, hummed to life. He struck the lock with precise voltage, overloading the magical circuit. The cage door swung open. "Come on," Cheetara grabbed Kit while Tigra scooped up Cat. They ran for the waste chute, but Kano's voice stopped them cold. "Clever cats." The mercenary leader stood blocking their exit, his cybernetic eye glowing red in the dim light. He held a curved blade that dripped with something that looked like liquid shadow. "Shang Tsung's paying top dollar for exotic souls. Yours just became premium inventory." Cheetara set Kit down and raised her staff. "Get behind me." Kano smiled, a terrible expression on his scarred face. "Fast are you? Let's test that." He moved. Not with super speed like Cheetara, but with the honed efficiency of someone who'd killed hundreds of opponents faster, stronger, and more skilled than himself. His blade carved through space where Cheetara had been a microsecond before, the soul-tipped edge close enough to part her whiskers. She counterattacked, staff strikes at speeds that would have liquefied a normal human's bones. Kano blocked with his blade, each parry placed with perfect economy of motion. He was reading her patterns, adapting, learning. "Tigra, go," Cheetara shouted. "Get the twins out." "I'm not leaving you." "That's an order." Tigra hesitated one fatal second. Kano's free hand whipped forward, throwing a blade that pinned Tigra's whip to the wall. Another blade followed, missing Cat's head by inches. "Nobody leaves," Kano said calmly. "Not until." The wall exploded inward. Lion-O burst through, riding a Shokan warrior he'd somehow forced into a charge. The Lord of the Thundercats leaped free at the last second, sending the giant crashing into Kano and buying precious seconds. "Run now." They ran. The depot erupted into chaos, mercenaries converging, alarms shrieking, those terrible soul-tipped turrets beginning to track. Panthro appeared from around a corner, his nunchaku creating a defensive perimeter. Jade and Cabal held the rear, their combined speed making them a nightmare for pursuing mercenaries. They burst from the fortress in a wave of coordinated violence and desperation. Behind them, Kano's voice carried clearly through the night. "Tell your boss, Shao Kahn, I've got his outsiders marked. Tell him Kano always delivers." They ran until the depot was distant memory, until Outworld's twisted landscape swallowed them, until Jade called a halt in a cave system she swore was safe. Kit and Kat clung to Lion-O, their young bodies shaking with reaction. "We thought we were going to die," Kit whispered. "Or worse. That man, he said he was going to sell us to something called a soul merchant." Lion-O held them close, rage and relief warring in his chest. "You're safe now, I promise." But as they settled into the cave for what remained of the night, Panthro caught Lion-O's eye. The unspoken question hung between them. How many more impossible rescues could they survive? How long before their code of honor became their death sentence in a realm that respected only strength? And somewhere in Outworld's darkness, Shang Tsung smiled. The wards on the Sword of Omens had shattered during the battle. The sole sorcerer knew exactly where the Thundercats were. The hunt had begun in earnest. Shang Tsung's island fortress existed in a state of perpetual twilight, a pocket dimension anchored to Outworld through blood magic and the anguished screams of 10,000 harvested souls. The sorcerer stood in his scrying chamber, watching crystalline projections display the Thundercats' desperate flight from Kano's depot. His lips curled into a smile that had nothing human behind it. "Magnificent," he whispered. "They fight with honor in a realm built on betrayal. They show mercy in an empire that rewards only cruelty. And they carry souls, ancient souls, wrapped in ignorance and righteousness." Beside him, another figure materialized from shadows that seemed to defy the room's ambient light. Quan Kai, necromancer of the Nether Realm, studied the projections with cold calculation. Where Shang Tsung was predatory elegance, Quan Kai was surgical menace, a demon who'd refined cruelty into an exact science. "The sword troubles me," Quan Kai said, his pale fingers steepled before his skeletal face. "The souls within are bound through covenant, not imprisonment. Harvesting them may prove resistant to conventional extraction." "Nothing is resistant to sufficient force," Shang Tsung countered. "But I agree, direct assault seems unwise. These Thundercats have already survived Tarkata ambush, infiltrated Black Dragon security, and allied with Kitana's rebellion. They are competent warriors enhanced by foreign metaphysics we don't fully understand." Quan Kai's expression might have been amusement. "You propose a trap." "I propose an asterisk invitation." Shang Tsung gestured, and the scrying crystal shifted focus to show a different location, the ruins of an ancient temple complex wreathed in perpetual mist. The Temple of the Elements, neutral ground by Elder God decree. Neither Earthrealm nor Outworld can claim it as territory. It exists between realms, accessible from all, controlled by none. And I have detected their missing companion. The small one, Snarf, I believe they call him. He stumbled into the temple 3 days ago, fleeing Lin Kuei assassins. The temple's neutral status has protected him thus far, but he cannot leave without violating the sanctuary and forfeiting that protection. Quan Kai saw the elegance immediately. You will offer the Thundercats their companion in exchange for what? The sword itself. Too obvious, they would never agree. Shang Tsung's smile widened. No, I will offer safe passage back to their home realm. A portal constructed jointly by my soul magic and your necromancy, powerful enough to breach dimensional barriers. All I ask in return is that their leader, this Lion-O, submits to a single scan of the Sword of Omens. 30 seconds, non-invasive. Simply to understand its construction, so we might replicate the dimensional breach that brought them here. They will suspect treachery. Of course they will, but they are desperate, separated from their home, and haunted by the knowledge that every moment in Outworld puts their missing companion at greater risk. Shang Tsung's eyes glowed with barely contained hunger. Desperation makes even honorable warriors consider dishonorable compromises. Quan Kai nodded slowly. And while you distract them with negotiations, I will prepare the true trap. Soul extraction through sympathetic resonance. The sword scanned in the temple while I work parallel rituals in the Netherrealm. By the time they realize the deception, the ancestral souls will already be flowing into our phylacteries. Precisely, though I suspect we may encounter complications. Raiden. The Thunder God has taken unusual interest in these outsiders. He will counsel them against accepting my offer. But Raiden is bound by Elder God law. He cannot interfere with voluntary agreements between mortals and sorcerers. If Lion-O agrees to the scan, Raiden's hands are tied. Quan Kai moved to the chamber's edge, where reality seemed thinner, shadows deeper. I will need 48 hours to prepare the Netherrealm ritual matrices. Can you keep the Thundercats occupied until then? I can keep them desperate, Shang Tsung replied. Kano has already marked their location for Shao Kahn's forces. The Emperor will deploy hunting parties, not enough to kill the Thundercats, but sufficient to drive them toward the temple. Fear is an excellent shepherd. The necromancer faded into shadows, leaving only his final words hanging in the air. Do not underestimate them, Shang Tsung. Warriors who fight with honor despite overwhelming incentive to abandon it are either fools or far more dangerous than they appear. Shang Tsung considered that. Then he activated a communication crystal keyed to Baraka's war camp. War Master, the Emperor's outsiders are 40 leagues northeast of your position. I suggest a hunting party, non-lethal force. We want them moving, not dead. Drive them toward the Temple of the Elements, and Baraka, make it look convincing. The Tarkata's response was a predatory growl. It will be our pleasure. The cave system Jade had led them to stank of sulfur and something organic that had died centuries ago. Lion-O paced the perimeter, unable to rest despite his body's screaming need for sleep. Kit and Kat were curled together near Tigra, finally unconscious after hours of frightened questions. Cheetara sat in meditation, trying to clear her sixth sense of the constant screaming warnings it had been broadcasting since their arrival. Panthro worked on his nunchaku, making minute adjustments with tools scrounged from Kitana's resistance supplies. The weapons had held up remarkably well, but Outworld's physics were slowly degrading the Thunderian alloys. He estimated maybe 72 more hours of reliable function before molecular breakdown became critical. Jade and Cabal had departed an hour ago, returning to Kitana's stronghold to report on the depot raid, which left the Thundercats alone with their thoughts and the growing certainty that they were in far over their heads. We can't keep doing this, Tigra said quietly. Every mission bleeds us. Every fight reveals how little we understand this realm's rules, and we still don't know where Snarf is. We'll find him, Lion-O said, but the words rang hollow even to his own ears. Will we, or will we find his corpse, or worse, his soul in some sorcerer's collection jar? Tigra. I'm not being defeatist, Lion-O, I'm being realistic. The orange-striped Thundercat stood, his whip coiling and uncoiling with nervous energy. We're soldiers without an army, operating in hostile territory against enemies who have been perfecting warfare for millennia. Our powers are compromised. Our technology is failing. And every time we use the Sword of Omens, we broadcast our location to things that want to harvest our souls. Lion-O wanted to argue, but Tigra was right and they both knew it. Cheetara's eyes snapped open. Someone's coming fast. Multiple somethings. They were on their feet instantly, weapons drawn, defensive positions established with practiced efficiency. The twins woke immediately, combat training overriding childish confusion. Raiden materialized in a flash of lightning, his expression grim. We must move. Now. Baraka has mobilized 3 Tarkata hunting packs, over 60 warriors converging on this location. They will arrive in minutes. How did they find us? Panthro demanded. Kano sold your trajectory to Shao Kahn's intelligence network. The depot raid was observed by spy crystals. They've been tracking your movement vector since you left the fortress. Raiden's hands crackled with barely restrained power. I can shield you temporarily, but prolonged divine intervention will attract elder god scrutiny. They do not look kindly on gods who interfere too directly in mortal affairs. So we run again, Lion-O said bitterly. How long can we keep running, Raiden? How long before we make a mistake and someone dies? Perhaps you need not run much further. A new voice echoed through the cave, smooth, cultured, carrying undertones of barely concealed menace. Shang Tsung stepped from shadows that hadn't existed seconds before, his arrival somehow bypassing all their senses and Raiden's divine awareness. The sorcerer wore robes that seemed woven from midnight itself, and his eyes held the accumulated malice of centuries. Lion-O raised the Sword of Omens, the eye blazing defiance. If you're here to take the sword, sorcerer, you'll find it less cooperative than you imagine. Take it, my dear Lord Lion-O, you misunderstand my intentions entirely. Shang Tsung spread his hands in a gesture of peace that fooled absolutely no one. I come offering assistance and information about your missing companion. Snarf, yes. The temperature in the cave seemed to drop. What do you know about Snarf? Lion-O's voice was dangerously quiet. I know he is alive. I know he has taken sanctuary in the Temple of the Elements, neutral ground where even Shao Kahn's hunters cannot touch him. And I know he will die there, slowly, of starvation and exposure, unless someone extracts him. The temple's laws are absolute. Those who enter seeking sanctuary cannot leave unless they forfeit that protection, a paradox that has trapped many desperate souls over the millennia. Why would you tell us this? Cheetara asked, her sixth sense screaming that every word from this creature was poison wrapped in truth. Because I offer you a bargain. Shang Tsung conjured an image in the air, a swirling portal of impossible colors. My colleague Quan Kai and I have studied the dimensional breach that brought you to Outworld. We believe we can replicate it, create a stable portal to your third Earth, allowing your return home. All of you, safely delivered beyond Shao Kahn's reach. In exchange for what? Panthro's tone made clear he expected the price to be unacceptable. Scan of the Sword of Omens. 30 seconds. Non-invasive. I simply wish to understand its metaphysical structure so we might tune our portal to resonate with your home dimension. The sword's connection to Third Earth would provide the necessary targeting data. Raiden's expression was thunderous. This is deception. Lion-O Shang Tsung seeks to harvest the ancestral souls bound to your sword. His words are truth twisted into lie-shaped holes. Perhaps, Shang Tsung acknowledged with infuriating calm. But what choice does Lord Lion-O truly have? Continue running through Outworld until Shao Kahn's armies corner you. Watch his companions die one by one in a realm that respects no code but strength. Or accept my offer, retrieve his missing friend, and go home back to a universe where honor actually means something. Lion-O felt the trap closing. Every instinct screamed that trusting Shang Tsung was suicide. But the alternative was perpetual flight through a nightmare realm, watching his team bleed and break until nothing remained but corpses and harvested souls. "I need to think." "You need to decide," Shang Tsung interrupted. "Baraka's hunting packs will arrive in approximately 7 minutes. You can flee again, abandoning your companion to die slowly in the temple. Or you can accept my protection, travel to the Temple of the Elements under my aegis, retrieve Snarf, and submit to a 30-second scan that may be your only chance of returning home." "And if I refuse?" The sorcerer's smile was a razor wrapped in silk. "Then you explain to young Kit and Kat why their innocence is worth less than your stubborn pride. You tell them that dying with honor in Outworld is superior to living with compromise in Third Earth. And when Baraka's blade arms open their throats, when their souls are harvested and sold to fuel someone's immortality spell, you comfort yourself with the knowledge that you stayed true to your code." Rage exploded in Lion-O's chest, pure, incandescent fury at being manipulated so perfectly. Shang Tsung was *right*, and that made it worse. The Thundercat Code demanded protecting the innocent, but every option led to compromise or death. "Lion-O, do not," Raiden began. "Can you guarantee safe extraction of Snarf?" Lion-O interrupted, his voice cold. "Can you promise that we'll find another way home? Can you swear that the twins won't die in the next week of running?" The Thunder God's silence was answer enough. Lion-O turned back to Shang Tsung, feeling something fundamental break inside his chest. "I have conditions. First, you extract Snarf before any scan. Second, the scan takes place in the Temple of the Elements, on neutral ground where you can't simply kill us afterward. Third, Raiden observes the entire process. Fourth, if the scan harms the sword or the souls within it, the deal is void and we fight our way out." "Acceptable," Shang Tsung said immediately, too immediately, confirming that he'd anticipated every demand. "Shall we depart? The hunting packs approach." Raiden stepped forward, his hand on Lion-O's shoulder. "This is a mistake. Whatever Shang Tsung promises, he will betray. It is his nature as surely as lightning follows thunder." "I know," Lion-O said quietly, "but I don't see another option, do you?" The god said nothing, because they both knew the truth. Sometimes there were no good options. Sometimes honor demanded accepting the least terrible choice and hoping you survive the consequences. "Everyone together," Lion-O ordered his team. "Stay close, watch for treachery, and if this goes wrong, fight like Thundercats." Shang Tsung raised his hands and darkness enveloped them. Reality twisted, and they were elsewhere traveling through spaces between spaces, corridors of existence where the laws of physics became negotiable suggestions. Panthro felt his stomach revolt. Tigra's camouflage flickered uncontrollably. Cheetara's speed momentarily accelerated to dangerous levels before stabilizing. The twins clung to each other, their young minds struggling to process travel through impossible geometries. And Lion-O held the Sword of Omens, feeling the weapon pulse with warning and the ancestral voices whispering urgent cautions he couldn't quite hear through Raiden's suppressing ward. They emerged in mist so thick it felt solid. The Temple of the Elements rose before them, a massive structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Its architecture defied logic, stairs that led sideways, walls that were simultaneously stone and water, columns carved from crystallized time. And somewhere in that impossible structure, Snarf waited, alone, terrified, still alive only because of laws even Shao Kahn couldn't violate. "Your companion is in the Eastern Sanctum," Shang Tsung said, gesturing toward a doorway that definitely hadn't existed a moment ago. "Retrieve him quickly. We have much to discuss regarding payment." Lion-O didn't trust himself to respond. He simply nodded to his team and entered the temple. Behind them, Shang Tsung's smile widened. In the Netherrealm, Quan Kai felt the Thundercats enter the temple and began activating ritual circles prepared over 48 sleepless hours. The trap was set. The prey had entered willingly. Now came the harvest. The eastern sanctum was a chamber carved from single piece of jade that pulsed with inner light. Snarf huddled in its center, his small form shaking with cold and fear. When he saw Lion-O, his eyes widened with disbelieving joy. Lion-O, oh Lion-O, I thought you were all dead. The Lin Kui, they chased me for days, and I found this temple, and the voice said I'd be safe, but I couldn't leave, and there's no food, and I've been so scared. Snarf, easy. Lion-O knelt, letting the small creature bury himself in his arms. You're safe now. We're getting you out of here. How? The temple voice said leaving means forfeiting sanctuary, that the hunters would be waiting. We have an arrangement with someone powerful enough to guarantee safe passage. Lion-O's tone made clear how he felt about that arrangement. Panthro examined the sanctum's architecture, his engineer's mind cataloging impossible structural elements. This place shouldn't exist. The load-bearing points are positioned in ways that violate every principle of physics I understand. Because the temple exists partially in 5 different realms simultaneously, Raiden said, materializing beside them. It is one of the Elder God's earliest constructions, a neutral meeting ground where representatives of all realms could gather without fear of ambush. The enchantments protecting it are older than Outworld itself, which makes it perfect for Shang Tsung's purposes, Cheetara said quietly, her sixth sense painting terrifying futures across her perception. He chose this location specifically because the temple's neutral status prevents you from intervening, Raiden. If Lion-O agrees to the scan, you cannot stop it, not without violating Elder God law. The Thunder God's expression was pained. She is correct. If Lion-O voluntarily submits to the scan, I am bound by divine covenant not to interfere with agreements made in good faith on neutral ground. Even if the agreement is made under duress, Tigra challenged. Duress is difficult to prove when the alternative is continued survival in hostile territory. By the letter of Elder God law, Shang Tsung's offer is legitimate, protection and information in exchange for metaphysical analysis. That the sorcerer has ulterior motives is suspected but not proven. Lion-O looked at his gathered team, Panthro still analyzing threats and solutions with tactical discipline, Tigra coiled and ready to fight, Cheetara torn between her visions of catastrophe and her loyalty, the twins barely old enough to understand the stakes, and Snarf rescued but still dependent on decisions Lion-O made. I'm going through with it, Lion-O said. Lion-O, no. Multiple voices protested simultaneously. Listen to me. The Lord of the Thundercats' voice carried absolute command. We are out of options. We can't run forever. We can't fight all of Outworld. And I will not let any of you die here because I was too proud to accept help, even from an enemy. He drew the Sword of Omens, and the eye blazed with ancestral wisdom. Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight. Show me the consequences of refusing Shang Tsung's offer. The vision that came was brutal in its clarity. Thundercats scattered and hunted, Panthro dying with blade arms through his chest, Cheetara's speed failing as soul-tipped bullets finally found their mark, Tigra captured and vivisected by Quan Kai's necromantic experiments, the twins sold into slavery, Snarf's soul harvested and placed in a phylactery jar to scream for eternity, and Lion-O himself, the last survivor, finally cornered by Shao Kahn personally, the Emperor's hammer crushing the Sword of Omens, the ancestral souls scattered, Third Earth left defenseless against Mum-Ra's eventual return. The vision released him. Lion-O gasped, tears streaming down his feline face. What did you see? Panthro asked quietly. What happens if we refuse? It's not acceptable. Lion-O straightened, wiping his eyes. We accept Shang Tsung's offer. We submit to the scan, and we trust that the Sword of Omens and our ancestors are stronger than whatever treachery he's planned. That is faith, not strategy, Raiden warned. Then I choose faith, because strategy has run out. Lion-O turned toward the sanctum's exit. Let's get this over with. They returned to the temple's central chamber, a vast space that seemed to contain its own weather system, complete with clouds that rained upward and wind that blew in impossible directions. Shang Tsung waited at a ritual circle carved into the floor, arcane symbols pulsing with soul light. "Excellent," the sorcerer said. "Please, Lord Lion-O, stand in the circle's center. The scan will take exactly 30 seconds. You will feel a slight tingling as the sword's metaphysical signature is analyzed, but no pain. You have my word." "The word of a soul harvester," Panthro muttered. "How comforting." Lion-O stepped into the circle. The symbols flared brighter, and in the Netherrealm, Quan Kai completed the final connection, linking his ritual to Shang Tsung's through bonds of sympathetic magic invisible to all but the most sensitive observers. "Begin," Shang Tsung intoned. The scan started as promised, a tingling sensation, mildly uncomfortable but not painful. Lion-O felt the sword's power responding to the analysis, ancestral voices murmuring warnings he still couldn't quite parse through Raiden's failing ward. 10 seconds passed, 15, 20. At 25 seconds, Lion-O felt something shift. The tingling became pulling. The analysis became extraction. The ancestors' whispers became screams. "You're harvesting them," Lion-O roared, trying to pull the sword from the circle. But his body wouldn't respond, paralyzed by enchantments woven into the very stone. Shang Tsung's mask of civility dropped, revealing the predator beneath. "Of course I am. Did you truly believe I sought only understanding? The souls in your sword are mine, payment for services rendered, debts collected, power claimed." Raiden lunged forward, but the temple's neutral status created a barrier he couldn't breach. "You gave your word, sorcerer." "I gave my word the scan would be non-invasive and painless. And so it is, asterisk for Lion-O asterisk, that the souls within object to extraction is their concern, not mine." The Sword of Omens blazed with defiance. The ancestral souls fought back, their combined willpower creating resistance Shang Tsung hadn't anticipated. The extraction slowed, becoming a battle of metaphysical wills. And Lion-O, trapped in paralysis, could only watch as his heritage was slowly stolen. Then Kit stepped into the circle. The young Thundercat shouldn't have been able to move. The paralysis enchantments were absolute. But she moved anyway, her small hand finding Lion-O's, her voice cutting through magical static with childlike clarity. "We're with you, Lion-O, all of us, always." Cat joined her, then Cheetara, Tigra, Panthro, even Snarf, trembling but determined. The circle wasn't designed for multiple participants. The enchantments fractured, and the Sword of Omens, feeling the combined will of its current bearers supporting its ancestral occupants, did something it had never done before. It reached back through the sympathetic link to the Netherrealm. And it pulled. Quan Kai screamed as his ritual circles exploded. Shang Tsung's extraction reversed violently, the soul energy he'd been collecting flowing backward into the sword with catastrophic force. The temple shook, reality cracked, and the Thundercats, linked through loyalty and desperation and something deeper than magic, channeled power that turned the trap into a weapon. When the light faded, Shang Tsung lay unconscious, his robe smoking. Quan Kai's link was severed, and the Sword of Omens blazed with power greater than anything Lion-O had felt before. Ancestors and descendants united, foreign magic absorbed and transmuted into something new. Raiden stared in wonder. "You have done the impossible. You have broken a divine-level soul trapped through nothing but will and unity. This will have consequences." "Let it," Lion-O said, his voice raw but unbowed. "We're done running. We're done compromising. If Outworld wants us, it can face the Thundercats at full strength." In his palace, Shao Kahn felt the magical disturbance and smiled. Finally, he thought, pray that fights back. This will be entertaining. The Emperor began assembling his champions. The true Mortal Kombat was about to begin. Shao Kahn's throne room was built from the fused skeletons of conquered emperors, each bone engraved with the names of realms that no longer existed. The Emperor himself sat upon a seat carved from a single piece of obsidian that pulsed with stolen life force, his skull-faced helm reflecting firelight that came from no visible source. His warhammer, the Soul Reaver, rested across his armored knees, hungry for violence after weeks of ceremonial stillness. Before him knelt Baraka, war master of the Tarkata, his blade arms folded in a gesture of submission that went against every predatory instinct in his body. You allowed them to escape. Shao Kahn's voice was thunder compressed into words. Twice now, the Thundercats have evaded your hunting packs. Explain why I should not feed you to my flesh pits. They are formidable, my Emperor. Baraka's tone carried grudging respect. The spotted one moves faster than our best scouts can track. The blue one wields weapons with precision that suggests centuries of training compressed into a mortal lifetime. And their leader, Lion-O, his sword channels power we cannot classify. Shang Tsung confirmed it resisted divine-level soul extraction. Shang Tsung is a fool who underestimated mortal determination, Shao Kahn rumbled. The sorcerer remains unconscious in his fortress, his phylacteries cracked, his pride shattered. He gambled on treachery and lost. The Emperor stood, his massive frame radiating menace that made even Baraka flinch. I will not make his mistake. These Thundercats want honor. I shall give them exactly that. He gestured, and a communication crystal flared to life, projecting Raiden's image into the throne room. The Thunder God appeared to be in the Sky Temple, Earthrealm's sacred ground. Shao Kahn, Raiden's tone was ice wrapped in lightning. If you have summoned me to gloat about hunting refugees, I summon you to propose Mortal Kombat, Shao Kahn interrupted. The Thundercats entered my realm illegally, outside tournament protocols. By ancient law, this constitutes an act of war, justification for immediate invasion of their home dimension. They entered by accident, not intention. You have no legitimate claim. Do I not? Shao Kahn's laughter was a landslide-given voice. 6 warriors wielding unknown powers, allied with Kitana's rebellion, disrupting my realm's stability. Their very presence violates the balance maintained by Mortal Kombat. Unless, he let the word hang. Raiden's eyes narrowed. Unless what? Unless they prove their worth through trial by combat. A modified tournament, not for realm conquest but for asterisk standing. The Thundercats face my chosen champions in ritual combat. If they prevail, I grant them legal status as honored guests rather than illegal combatants. They may seek passage home without interference. And if they lose, they submit to Outworld law, they fight in my arenas, they serve my empire. Their sword and their souls become imperial property. Shao Kahn's smile was carnivorous. But this gives them something Shang Tsung did not: honest combat with clear stakes. No deception, no treachery, simply strength versus strength. Raiden's expression cycled through rage, calculation, and reluctant acknowledgement. The Thundercats will never agree. They are not your subjects to command into gladiatorial service. Then they remain illegal combatants, and I am justified in hunting them to extinction. Their choice is simple: honorable combat with a chance at survival, or continued flight until my armies inevitably corner them. The Emperor leaned forward. You know I am right, Raiden. By the law's asterisk you helped establish, my claim is legitimate. The Elder Gods will not intervene. The Thunder God said nothing, because there was nothing to say. Shao Kahn had found the legal loophole and exploited it perfectly. Mortal Kombat's sacred protocols demanded that realm disputes be settled through ritual combat. The Thundercats' accidental arrival created a dispute. Therefore, combat could resolve it. I will relay your invitation, Raiden said finally. But the choice belongs to Lion-O and his warriors. I will not force them into your arena. Of course not, you are honorable asterisk. Shao Kahn's tone made the word an insult. But they will agree, because they are also honorable and honor demands facing threats directly rather than hiding. Give them my terms, 5 days hence in the arena of lost souls. 6 Thundercats against 6 of my champions. Standard Mortal Kombat rules, combat until death, submission, or incapacitation. Victor claims the stakes. The communication crystal went dark. Baraka remained kneeling, waiting for dismissal or execution. Assemble my champions, Shao Kahn ordered. I want warriors who will test these outsiders, not simply slaughter them. The spotted one's speed, Mileena can match it. The weapon's master, Goro, will crush his technique with raw power. The invisible one, Reptile, knows stealth better than any living warrior. And for their leader, the Emperor's smile widened behind his skull helm. For Lion-O, I choose myself. I would face this Lord of Thundercats personally and show him what true imperial power means. My Emperor, Baraka said carefully, you risk much by entering the arena directly. If you were to fall, I will not fall, but the symbolic value of an emperor who fights alongside his champions rather than hiding behind them, that is worth any risk. Shao Kahn retrieved his warhammer, the soul Reaver singing with anticipation. Besides, it has been far too long since I crushed something with my own hands. This Lion-O's defiance intrigues me. I would measure his strength before claiming his soul. Kitana's resistance stronghold erupted into argument the moment Raiden delivered Shao Kahn's terms. It's a trap, Jade said flatly. The Emperor is not known for honoring agreements. You enter that arena, you die. But if we refuse, he's justified in declaring war on Third Earth, Tigra countered. We led him right to our home realm. Accidentally, yes, but the consequence is the same. So we fight, Panthro said, testing his repaired nunchaku. Kitana's artificers had reinforced the weapons with Outworld alloys, buying them perhaps another week of function. We've faced impossible odds before. Not like this. Cheetara's voice was hollow. Her sixth sense had been screaming since Raiden's announcement, showing her futures painted in blood. I see us in that arena. I see Shao Kahn's hammer crushing bone. I see Goro tearing through us like paper. I see, she stopped, unable to voice the worst visions. Lion-O stood apart from the group, the Sword of Omens planted before him, its eye blazing with new intensity since absorbing the backlash from Shang Tsung's trap. The ancestral voices were clearer now, their wisdom more accessible, but they were divided, some counseling acceptance, others demanding refusal. None agreeing on the correct path. We cannot win against Shao Kahn asterisk, one voice whispered. He has conquered hundreds of realms. His power is absolute. We cannot refuse, asterisk, another argued. To run is to doom Third Earth. Honor demands we face this threat. Honor may demand suicide, a third voice said pragmatically. Sometimes wisdom means knowing when you are outmatched. Lion-O silenced them with an effort of will. What are the actual tournament rules? He asked Raiden. The Thunder God materialized more fully, his form solidifying from lightning-wreathed mist. Standard Mortal Kombat protocols, 6 combatants per side, paired randomly for single combat. Each fight continues until one warrior is dead, unconscious, or yields. The side with most victories claims the stakes. In the event of a tie, the team leaders, you and Shao Kahn, face each other in final combat. So worst case, I have to fight an emperor who's conquered hundreds of dimensions, Lion-O said calmly. What are his capabilities? Kitana stepped forward. Shao Kahn is functionally immortal through stolen soul energy. He possesses strength sufficient to shatter stone with casual blows. His warhammer channels necromantic power that can trap souls on impact. One solid hit, and your spirit is forfeit regardless of whether the blow kills you. He has 10,000 years of combat experience and has personally slain hundreds of realm champions. So he's tough. Got it. Lion-O's tone was so absurdly understated that several people couldn't tell if he was being brave or suicidal. Lion-O, this isn't bravery, it's Tigra began. It's the only option we have, Lion-O interrupted. Kitana, if we refuse this challenge, what happens to your rebellion? The princess's expression darkened. Shao Kahn uses your refusal as propaganda, proof that even honored warriors recognize his supremacy. My mother's execution would follow within days, demonstrating the price of resistance. The rebellion collapses. And if we fight and lose? The same outcome, but your souls join Shang Tsung's collection, and Third Earth becomes vulnerable to invasion. And if we win? Silence. Nobody had seriously considered that possibility. If you win, Raiden said slowly, Shao Kahn is bound by Elder God law to grant you legal status and safe passage home. He cannot pursue you beyond Outworld's borders without violating Mortal Kombat protocols, a transgression that would justify direct divine intervention. Then we fight to win, Lion-O said simply, and we start preparing now. Raiden, you said the pairings are random, determined by ritual lots drawn at the arena. Neither side controls the matchups. Then we train for versatility. Each of us needs to be ready to face any of Shao Kahn's champions. Lion-O turned to his team. Panthro, assess enemy capabilities and develop counter-tactics. Tigra, work with Jade on adapting your camouflage to Outworld's magic. Cheetara, partner with Cabal. His speed matches yours, so he can help you refine technique. Cat. We're fighting too, Kit said firmly. Absolutely not. You need 6 warriors, Lion-O, we're Thundercats. We fight. The young girl's voice carried steel that belied her age. Besides, we're smaller and faster than most Outworld warriors. That's an advantage. Lion-O wanted to refuse. Every protective instinct screamed to keep the twins away from combat. But Kit was right. They needed 6 combatants, and the twins had survived Kano's depot through skill, not luck. Fine, he said reluctantly, but you train with Kitana personally. I want you learning every defensive technique she knows. Snarf, who'd been silent throughout the discussion, finally spoke up. What about me? You're our tactical coordinator, Lion-O said, giving the small creature a role that kept him off the battlefield. You'll observe, analyze, and relay information during the fights. Your job is to spot weaknesses we might miss in the moment. The team dispersed to their assigned training, leaving Lion-O alone with Raiden and the Sword of Omens. You're planning something, Raiden observed. Something beyond standard combat preparation. Lion-O nodded slowly. The sword absorbed Shang Tsung's soul magic when we broke his trap. That power is still in there, integrated with the ancestral spirits. What if we could channel it? Not for extraction or harvesting, but for asterisk defense. That would require understanding soul magic at a level that takes sorcerers centuries to achieve. Or it requires listening to thousands of ancestors who have witnessed magic across Thundera's entire history. Lion-O raised the sword, and the eye blazed. Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight. Show me how to wield the stolen power. The vision that came was complex and dangerous. Pathways through the sword's metaphysical structure, channels where soul energy could be directed outward as shield or weapon. But every path carried risk. Pushed too hard and the ancestral spirits would be damaged, potentially destroyed. Used too little, and the power would be insufficient against Shao Kahn's necromantic hammer. It was a technique that required perfect control and absolute trust. One mistake would kill Lion-O and shatter the sword permanently. This is madness, Raiden said, reading the determination in Lion-O's expression. Even if you master this technique, Shao Kahn has millennia of experience with soul combat. You would be a novice challenging a master. Then I'd better learn fast. Lion-O's smile was grim. We have 5 days. Teach me everything you know about soul magic, Raiden. Because when I face Shao Kahn in that arena, I'm going to need every advantage I can create. The next 5 days blurred into an endless cycle of training, failure, adaptation, and brutal improvement. Panthro sparred with Goro's lieutenant, a four-armed Shao Kahn who demonstrated exactly how outclassed the Thundercats were in raw strength. The first bout ended with Panthro's ribs cracked and his nunchaku shattered. The second went better. Panthro adapted, using speed and technique to compensate for power differential. By the 5th day, he could survive 3 minutes against the Shao Kahn without being crippled. It wasn't enough, but it was progress. Tigra worked with Jade in the Crystal Caves, learning to channel his camouflage through Edenian magic rather than Thunderian technology. The hybrid approach was unstable but powerful, moments of perfect invisibility interspersed with violent flickerouts. Jade taught him to weaponize the instability, using the flickers to disorient opponents rather than trying to maintain constant stealth. Cheetara raced Cabal through Outworld's bone forests, pushing her speed to limits that should have torn her muscles apart. The realm's heavier gravity became a training weight. When she finally adapted, her velocity in Outworld matched what she'd achieved on Third Earth. Cabal taught her his signature move, using speed to create tornado force winds, turning velocity into blunt force trauma. The twins trained with Kitana in blade work and acrobatics, their small size becoming an asset as they learned to strike at angles larger warriors couldn't defend. Kit developed a specialty in rapid vertical strikes, climbing opponents like trees and attacking vital points. Kat became expert in joint manipulation, using Kitana's steel fans to disable rather than kill. And Lion-O stood in the crystal chamber, the Sword of Omens blazing with power that threatened to consume him, learning to channel soul energy without destroying his weapon or himself. The secret, Raiden explained during one session, is balance asterisk. Soul magic is transactional, every use extracts a price. Shang Tsung pays that price through harvesting others. You must pay it through your own life force. Channel too much and you burn out. Channel too little and the technique is worthless. Lion-O practiced the technique until his hands bled and his vision doubled. The ancestral voices guided him, but the power resisted being weaponized. It was meant for wisdom and guidance, not combat. Forcing it into martial channels felt like trying to make water flow uphill. But slowly, painfully, he learned. By the 3rd day, he could create a soul shield that lasted 3 seconds. By the 4th, 5 seconds. By the 5th day, the day before the tournament, he managed a 10-second shield and a single offensive pulse strong enough to crack a training dummy carved from enchanted stone. It wasn't enough to defeat Shao Kahn, but it might let him survive long enough to find a weakness. The night before the tournament, the team gathered one final time. They were as prepared as 5 days allowed. It wouldn't be sufficient, but it was all they had. Tomorrow, we face the worst Outworld can throw at us, Lion-O said, his voice steady despite the fear he knew everyone felt. We're going to be outmatched, overpowered, probably outnumbered if Shao Kahn decides to cheat, but we're Thundercats. We protect the innocent, we fight for justice, and we never give up no matter the odds. Thunder, Panthro said softly. Thunder, the others echoed. Thunder, Lion-O finished. And thunder, thunder, Thundercats ho. The Sword of Omens blazed, and for one moment the eye's light pushed back Outworld's perpetual crimson darkness. It was a small defiance, a brief gesture. But it was asterisk there's asterisk. The arena of lost souls lived up to its name. Built from the fused bones of 10,000 champions who died in ritual combat, its walls screamed whenever wind passed through them. The death cries of warriors preserved in calcified agony. The fighting floor was smooth obsidian stained with blood that never fully washed away, and the stands held thousands of Outworld citizens come to watch the Emperor's justice. Shao Kahn sat upon a portable throne, his champions arrayed before him. Goro, Prince of the Shao Kahn, 4 arms rippling with dragon-marked muscle. Mileena, Kitana's clone sister, her Tarkatan teeth hidden behind a mask and her side dripping with paralytic venom. Reptile, the last Zadharan, invisible and patient. Ermac, a construct of 10,000 souls fused into a single telepathic warrior. Baraka, war master who'd hunted them from the beginning. And Shao Kahn himself, warhammer in hand, ready to crush their hope. The Thundercats entered opposite, Lion-O bearing the Sword of Omens, its eye blazing defiance. Panthro with his reinforced nunchaku. Tigra, whip coiled and ready. Cheetara, staff held in perfect ready stance. And Kit and Kat, so small they looked like children in costume rather than warriors. Raiden stood between the two groups, his presence the only thing preventing violence before the ritual began. 6 champions per side, he announced, his voice carrying divine authority that silenced even Shao Kahn's bloodthirsty audience. Random pairings determined by Elder God ritual. Combat until death, unconsciousness, or submission. The side with most victories claims the stakes. He raised his hands, and 6 pairs of crystalline tokens appeared, one set marked with Thundercats emblems, the other with Outworld sigils. They spun in the air, then connected in random pairings. The matchups manifested. Panthro versus Goro. Cheetara versus Mileena. Tigra versus Reptile. WilyKit versus Baraka. WilyKat versus Ermac. Lion-O versus Shao Kahn. The worst possible configuration. Their strongest against the Emperor, their youngest against seasoned killers, everyone outmatched. Kit looked up at Lion-O, her young face showing fear but also trust. We can do this, right? Lion-O wanted to lie, to promise victory and safety, but the Thundercat Code demanded truth. I don't know, he said quietly, but we're going to try with everything we have, and no matter what happens, I'm proud of all of you. Raiden's voice echoed across the arena. Let the first combat begin. Panthro of Thundera versus Goro, Prince of the Shaken. Fight. The War Master stepped into the obsidian circle, weapons ready, facing a giant whose arms could crush stone. The true Mortal Kombat had begun, and the realms held their breath. Goro entered the arena like a walking earthquake. Each step cracked the obsidian floor, his 4 arms flexing with power that made the air itself seem heavy. The Shaken Prince stood nearly 9 feet tall, his dragon-marked hide scarred from centuries of combat. He'd killed hundreds of champions in Mortal Kombat across multiple tournaments. To him, Panthro was just another corpse awaiting creation. I have fought Earthrealm's greatest warriors, Goro rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. I have torn through their defenses and crushed their bones. You are not even from a realm I recognize, Cat. Your death will be brief asterisk. Panthro spun his nunchaku once, a gesture of readiness that concealed his racing tactical mind. 5 days of training against a Shaken lieutenant had taught him brutal truths. He couldn't match Goro's strength, couldn't endure prolonged combat, couldn't afford a single clean hit from those massive fists. But he'd also learned that Shaken physiology, despite 4 arms, still relied on centralized balance points. Hit them right, and even giants fell. I'm Panthro, weapons master of the Thundercats, he said calmly. And I've been building things and breaking them, since before you were born, Prince. Let's see if Shaken engineering is as solid as it looks. Goro's roar shook the arena. He charged, not recklessly, but with the controlled aggression of a veteran who knew exactly how to use his mass. Panthro didn't retreat. He advanced asterisk, closing distance in a move that defied every survival instinct. The nunchaku whirled in complex patterns, not attacking but measuring. Each strike tested Goro's defenses, mapped his reaction time, calculated the reach of those 4 arms. Goro's first punch would have decapitated Panthro if it connected. Instead, the Thundercat used the nunchaku as a fulcrum, redirecting the blow past his head while simultaneously striking Goro's elbow joint. The impact was precisely calculated, not enough force to break, but sufficient to create a microfracture in the bone. Goro's second punch came from a different arm. Panthro rolled under it, his nunchaku striking the Shakin's knee, same joint Panthro had targeted during his very first encounter with these giants. The old injury, never fully healed, flared with remembered pain. The third and fourth arms came simultaneously, a pincer attack that should have caught Panthro regardless of which direction he dodged. But the Thundercat didn't dodge. He dropped, flat against the obsidian floor, and swept Goro's already weakened leg. The Prince of the Shakin didn't fall, but he stumbled asterisk, and in that moment of compromised balance, Panthro saw his opening. The nunchaku struck with surgical precision. Kidney points, nerve clusters, the soft tissue at the base of the skull where even Shakin hide was vulnerable. Each impact was calculated for maximum pain with minimal energy expenditure. Panthro was fighting a war of attrition against an opponent who could end the fight with one clean hit. Goro adapted. Of course he did. Champions didn't survive centuries by being slow learners. He stopped trying to crush Panthro with overwhelming force and started using his four arms to create unblockable combinations. High, low, middle, grab. Attack vectors coming from angles that shouldn't be possible. Panthro's defense began to fracture. A fist clipped his shoulder, numbing his left arm. A grab caught his leg, lifting him off the ground. For one terrible moment, Panthro hung suspended, all four of Goro's hands gripping different parts of his body, the Shakin preparing to pull. The crowd roared, anticipating dismemberment. Panthro's free hand found one of his utility belt's remaining devices, a flashbang grenade reverse-engineered from Outworld tech during his 5 days of preparation. He triggered it point-blank into Goro's face. The explosion was blinding. Goro dropped Panthro with a howl of pain and rage, and the Thundercat, hitting the ground hard enough to crack ribs, forced his battered body into one final combination. Both nunchaku struck simultaneously, right temple and left temple, perfectly synchronized, channeling every ounce of Panthro's remaining strength into twin impacts designed to rattle Goro's brain inside his skull. The Shakin Prince swayed, took one step, then collapsed like a felled tree. The arena fell silent. Raiden's voice cut through the shocked quiet. Victory, Panthro of Thundera. The Thundercat section erupted in cheers. The Outworld crowd sat stunned. Goro had been invincible asterisk, a cornerstone of Shao Kahn's power for centuries. His defeat was impossible. But Panthro stood over the unconscious Shakin, nunchaku still raised, proving that even giants could fall to superior tactics and desperate courage. Shao Kahn's expression was unreadable behind his skull helm, but his grip on the Soul Reaver tightened enough to make the metal scream. Next combat, Raiden announced. Cheetara of Thundera versus Mileena of Outworld. Fight. Mileena entered the arena with liquid grace, her movement pattern so similar to Kitana's that it created cognitive dissonance for anyone who knew both women. But where Kitana carried herself with regal discipline, Mileena radiated barely contained violence. Her mask hid the Tarkatan teeth she'd inherited from Baraka's genetic template, but her eyes held predatory madness. "Pretty cat," she purred, her voice distorted by the mask. "Fast cat. Let's see if you're asterisk tasty asterisk cat." Cheetara's sixth sense was screaming warnings, futures where Mileena's sigh punctured her throat, where those hidden teeth tore through her jugular, where speed wasn't enough. But she'd trained with Cabal, learned to weaponize velocity itself. "I've faced Mumra's demons," Cheetara said quietly, her staff held in ready stance. "You're just another monster." "Then let me show you what monsters can do." Mileena asterisk teleported asterisk, not super speed but actual spatial displacement, appearing behind Cheetara with both sai aimed at kidney points. But Cheetara's precognition had shown her this attack 3 seconds before it happened. She was already moving, staff whirling to deflect both strikes with millimeter precision. Then Cheetara showed her speed. To the crowd, she simply asterisk vanished asterisk. One moment standing defensive, The next, a spotted blur circling Mileena at velocities that created visible afterimages. Each pass delivered a staff strike, kidney, ribs, knee, elbow, precision attacks aimed at nerve clusters and joints. Mileena couldn't track the movement, but she didn't need to. She teleported again, appearing outside the attack radius, and when Cheetara blurred past, Mileena's sigh whistled through where the Thundercat asterisk would asterisk be in half a second. The blade caught Cheetara's shoulder, paralytic venom flooding her system. Her right arm went numb. Her speed faltered. Mileena pounced, tackling Cheetara to the ground. Mask tearing away to reveal the nightmare mouth beneath, teeth like serrated knives, jaw that could unhinge to swallow prey whole. "Tasty cat," Mileena repeated, her breath reeking of carrion. "I'm going to eat you slowly." Cheetara's sixth sense showed her two futures, one where she panicked and died screaming, another where she stayed calm and found the opening. She chose calm. "You talk too much." Her left hand, still functional, drove her staff up into Mileena's diaphragm with enough force to crack bone. The clone princess's attack faltered, and Cheetara used that moment to roll free, putting distance between them despite her compromised arm. Mileena recovered fast, teleporting to close distance again. But this time Cheetara was ready. As Mileena materialized, Cheetara was already spinning, using Cabal's technique, channeling her speed into rotational force, creating a miniature tornado. Mileena was caught in the vortex, lifted off her feet, slammed into the arena wall with force that dented stone. She fell, disoriented, and Cheetara, despite the paralysis spreading through her shoulder, pressed the attack. The staff became a blur. Strikes came from impossible angles, each one calculated to disable rather than kill. Cheetara wasn't trying to murder Mileena. She was trying to overwhelm her, to move so fast that even teleportation couldn't create enough distance. The Thundercat Code, never kill the defeated. But Mileena wasn't defeated. Even battered, even disoriented, the clone princess fought with Tarkatan ferocity. Her sigh found Cheetara's leg, more venom flooding the Thundercat's system. Both of Cheetara's limbs were compromised now, paralysis spreading. They circled each other, two warriors at their limits, each looking for one final opening. Mileena teleported. Cheetara's precognition showed her the attack vector. The staff whirled up to block. But the paralysis was too advanced. Cheetara's muscles didn't respond fast enough. Mileena's side drove toward her throat. Then Kit was asterisk their asterisk, somehow on the arena floor despite it not being her match, her small body interposing between Cheetara and death. The sigh meant for Cheetara's jugular caught Kit's shoulder instead, the young Thundercat crying out but holding, buying Cheetara the half-second needed to complete her block. "Kit, get back," Cheetara gasped. But the distraction was enough. Raiden materialized, divine authority overriding tournament protocol. Enough. External interference nullifies the match. Cheetara of Thundera is disqualified asterisk. The announcement hit like a physical blow. Mileena was awarded the victory despite being seconds from defeat. The Outworld section roared approval while the Thundercats section fell silent. Kit, being carried from the arena floor by medical staff, looked back at Cheetara with tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I just didn't want you to die." "I know," Cheetara whispered, feeling the paralysis finally overwhelm her body. "I know, Kit, it's okay." But it wasn't okay. The score was tied, one victory each, and Kit had just disqualified herself from her own upcoming match through her interference. Shao Kahn's laughter rolled across the arena like thunder. Noble cats, willing to sacrifice victory to save each other. How asterisk touching asterisk. How pathetic asterisk. Raiden's expression was grim as he announced the new matchups, adjusting for Kit's disqualification. Tigra of Thundera versus Reptile of Zadarin. Fight. The arena floor cleared. Reptile didn't *enter so much as *manifest*. His invisibility so perfect that the first indication of his presence was his voice, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "I am the last of my kind," Reptile hissed, the words dripping with acid and rage. "Killed by Shao Kahn's conquest, enslaved by his magic. You think your tragedy compares to mine? I will show you true suffering." Tigra activated his hybrid invisibility. Thunderian tech merged with Edenian magic. For a moment, both warriors were invisible, the crowd watching empty arena floor where two killers stalked each other. Then the dance began. Flickers of movement, Tigra's unstable camouflage revealing him in quarter-second bursts. Reptile's acid spray hissing through space where Tigra had been moments before. A whip crack that caught something, followed by a reptilian hiss of pain. The crowd leaned forward, straining to track combat they could barely perceive. Tigra had trained for this, learned to weaponize his camouflage's instability, using each flicker to disorient rather than reveal. But Reptile had centuries of experience, and his invisibility was perfect. The Zadaran could track Tigra by scent, by sound, by the microscopic displacement of air. A clawed hand materialized from nothing, raking across Tigra's chest. The Thundercat rolled with the blow, his whip lashing out blind, catching Reptile's arm and pulling, using the contact to yank the assassin into visibility. For 3 seconds they were both visible, locked in close-quarters combat. Tigra's whip versus Reptile's claws, speed versus experience, honor versus desperation. Then Reptile vomited, acid directly into Tigra's face. The Thundercat screamed, his camouflage failing completely as he staggered back, clawing at his burning eyes. Reptile pressed the advantage, claws seeking vital organs, going for the kill, and walked straight into Tigra's trap. The whip hadn't been trying to restrain Reptile. It had been positioning the Zadaran, guiding him toward a specific location on the arena floor where Tigra had planted a shaped charge during the confusion of Kit's disqualification. A tiny explosive, barely noticeable, placed with an architect's precision. Tigra, his eyes burning but functional enough to see shapes, triggered the charge. The explosion caught Reptile's center mass, launching the assassin across the arena. He hit the wall hard enough to crack vertebrae, his invisibility failing completely, revealing his true form. Green scales, yellow eyes, and blood, so much blood, leaking from internal injuries. Tigra stood over him, whip raised for a finishing strike. The Thundercat Code said, "Never kill the defeated asterisk," but Reptile had tried to blind him, had fought with lethal intent from the first moment. The arena waited. Shao Kahn leaned forward, curious what choice this outsider would make. Tigra lowered his whip. "Yield, you've lost." Reptile's laugh was wet and broken. "Fools, you noble fools, this mercy will kill you." But he yielded, and Raiden declared victory for Thundera. 2-1, the Thundercats were ahead, but the hardest matches remained. WilyKat of Thundera versus Ermac of Outworld. Fight. Cat entered the arena looking impossibly small, a child facing a construct of 10,000 fused souls, each one screaming for violence. Ermac hovered above the obsidian floor, its body wrapped in tattered cloth, its eyes glowing with eerie green light. When it spoke, 10,000 voices emerged simultaneously. "We are many, you are one. This is not combat, this is harvesting." Cat held Kitana's steel fans, weapons almost too large for her small hands. But she trained for this, learned that size was an advantage when properly exploited. Larger opponents created larger targets. "I'm Cat of the Thundercats," she said, her voice shaking but determined. "And I'm not food." Ermac gestured, and telekinetic force slammed into Cat like a physical wall. The young Thundercat flew backward, hitting the ground hard enough to knock the wind from her lungs. "Yield, we do not wish to harvest a child's soul. but we will if you force us. Kat pushed herself upright, tasting blood. Every survival instinct screamed to surrender, but she'd watched Goro fall to Panthro's tactics, watched Cheetara fight despite paralysis, watched Tigra blind himself to win. "Thundercats don't quit," she whispered. Then louder, "Thundercats don't quit." She ran, not at Ermac, but in a circle around the construct, moving in the acrobatic patterns Kitana had drilled into her. Ermac's telekinesis tried to grab her, but Kat was small and fast and desperately determined. The fans flew from her hands, not as weapons but as distractions, spinning through the air to draw Ermac's attention. And while the construct focused on the obvious threat, Kat used her size to go low asterisk, sliding beneath Ermac's hovering form, her claws extending to rake across what passed for the creature's legs. The construct didn't bleed, but it felt asterisk, 10,000 souls experiencing pain simultaneously, their unified scream shaking the arena. Ermac's telekinesis caught Kat, lifting her into the air, preparing to crush her like an insect. She dangled helpless, bones beginning to crack from the pressure. "You fought well, child, but this ends now." "Yeah," Kat gasped, "it does." Her free hand held one of Jade's smoke pellets, stolen during training. She'd been saving it, waiting for the perfect moment. This was it. She crushed the pellet. Alchemical smoke exploded, disrupting Ermac's telekinetic focus. The construct's grip failed and Kat fell, 15 feet down onto obsidian floor, landing in a roll that Kitana had made her practice 1,000 times. The smoke cleared. Ermac reformed its concentration, preparing to finish this quickly. But Kat was gone. Using the smoke as cover, she'd retrieved her fans and repositioned, exploiting the chaos to strike from Ermac's blind spot. The fan caught the construct's head, severing the connection between its unified consciousness and its physical anchor. For one moment, 10,000 souls pulled in different directions, the forced unity fracturing. Ermac collapsed, its body dissolving into component souls that screamed in confusion before Raiden's divine power gathered and contained them. "Victory, WilyKat of Thundera." The crowd exploded. An asterisk child had defeated one of Shao Kahn's most powerful champions. It shouldn't have been possible, but Kat stood over Ermac's dissolving form, bloody and exhausted and victorious. 3-1. The Thundercats were ahead by 2 victories. They needed just one more win to secure their freedom. Baraka of the Tarkata versus WilyKit of Thundera. Fight. Kit entered the arena still bleeding from her shoulder wound. The paralytic venom from earlier partially healed but still affecting her coordination. She faced Baraka, the War Master who'd hunted them since their arrival, whose tactical brilliance had nearly killed them multiple times. "You should have stayed in your home realm, kitten," Baraka said, his blade arms extending. "Now you die proving your Emperor's superiority." Kit didn't respond. She simply raised her weapons and waited. Baraka attacked with professional efficiency. No grandstanding, no overconfidence. Just lethal strikes aimed at vital organs, each combination building on the last, forcing Kit backward with relentless pressure. Kit's climbing technique, so effective against static opponents, failed against Baraka's mobile defense. Her speed advantage was negated by the lingering venom. Her youth, which had been an asset through unpredictability, became a liability against a warrior who'd killed thousands of opponents more experienced than she. Within 2 minutes, Baraka had Kit on the defensive, bleeding from multiple cuts, her weapons barely keeping his blade arms away from her throat. "You fought well," Baraka said, almost respectfully. "But this is Mortal Kombat. Effort is not enough. Only victory matters." His blade arm drove toward Kit's heart. Lion-O's voice rang across the arena, carrying absolute command. "Kit, pattern Omega." Kit's body moved before her mind processed the order, pure training reflex overriding pain and fear. She dropped her weapons, ducked beneath Baraka's strike, and went for a joint lock she practiced 10,000 times but never truly believed would work. Her small hands found Baraka's elbow joint, her entire body weight leveraging against the angle. For one impossible moment, Kit, barely 80 pounds of injured child, held Baraka, 250 pounds of Tarkata killing machine, in a submission hold that physics said shouldn't work. But it did, because Kitana's training had been perfect, because desperation added strength, because sometimes the impossible was just the difficult viewed from a different angle. Baraka roared, trying to break free, but movement meant dislocating his own arm, and even Tarkata pain tolerance had limits. His free blade arm couldn't reach Kit's position. He was trapped. "Yield," Kit said through tears and blood and exhausted triumph. "Please just yield." For 10 seconds, Baraka fought the hold. Then, with grudging respect, the War Master tapped the obsidian floor twice, the universal signal of submission. Victory, WilyKit of Thundera. 4-1. The Thundercats had won. They'd secured their freedom, earned their right to go home. But Shao Kahn stood from his throne, the sole Reaver blazing with necromantic power. "Unacceptable," the Emperor's voice was reality-bending rage. "I will not allow my champions to be humiliated by asterisk children and outsiders asterisk." Final combat. Lion-O of Thundera versus Shao Kahn, Emperor of Outworld. "And if I win, asterisk all previous victories are forfeit." Raiden materialized, lightning crackling. "That violates tournament protocol. The Thundercats have won fairly." "I am the tournament," Shao Kahn roared. "My realm, my laws, my final say. The Cat Lord will face me, or I declare them all oath breakers and forfeit." Lion-O stepped forward, the Sword of Omens blazing with combined ancestral and absorbed soul power. He'd known it would come to this, known from the moment the matchups were announced that Shao Kahn would never accept defeat. "I accept," Lion-O said calmly. "One final match, Emperor versus Lord, and when I win, you honor your word and let us go home." "When you win," Shao Kahn's laughter could have shattered mountains. Bold words from a dead cat. They faced each other in the center of the arena. Lion-O, 20-something lord of a fallen civilization, and Shao Kahn, 10,000-year emperor of dimensional conquest. The Soul Reaver met the Sword of Omens, and the realms trembled. The first exchange nearly killed life. Shao Kahn's warhammer moved with speed that defied its massive size, the Soul Reaver screaming as it carved through air made thick with necromantic power. Lion-O raised the Sword of Omens in a desperate parry, and the impact sent shockwaves rippling across the arena floor. The obsidian cracked. The crowd was thrown back in their seats, and Lion-O felt his arms go numb from fingertips to shoulders. "Disappointing," Shao Kahn rumbled, already pressing his advantage. "I expected more from one who survived Shang Tsung's treachery, but you are just another asterisk mortal pretending to godhood." The warhammer came again, and again, and again, each strike a killing blow that Lion-O barely deflected. The Sword of Omens blazed with power, the ancestral spirits lending strength, but even their combined force struggled against 10,000 years of accumulated soul energy. Lion-O gave ground, his Thunderian speed the only thing keeping him alive. He couldn't match Shao Kahn's strength, couldn't outlast his endurance, couldn't overcome millennia of combat experience with 5 days of desperate training. But he could be smart. "Sword of Omens," Lion-O gasped, channeling the technique Raiden had taught him. "Give me sight beyond sight." The eye blazed and vision expanded. Lion-O saw Shao Kahn not as he appeared, but as he was asterisk, a framework of stolen souls held together through necromantic will, each soul a chain binding the Emperor to immortality. Thousands of them from hundreds of conquered realms, all screaming in eternal torment. And at the center, one soul brighter than the rest, the original Shao Kahn, the man he'd been before conquest transformed him into a monster. That soul was the keystone, break it, and the entire structure would collapse. But it was buried beneath layers of necromantic armor that would take hours to penetrate. Lion-O didn't have hours. He had seconds before Shao Kahn's next strike caved in his skull. The vision released him. Lion-O rolled beneath the Warhammer's arc and came up swinging, the sword channeling every ounce of power he'd absorbed from Shang Tsung's trap. Soul energy met soul energy in a collision that lit the arena like a miniature sun. Shao Kahn actually staggered asterisk. "Impossible," the Emperor snarled. "You wield soul magic, you who claims to fight for asterisk honor." "I wield power gifted by my ancestors," Lion-O shot back, pressing his momentary advantage. "Power given freely, not stolen through conquest. That's the difference between us, Shao Kahn. You take, I receive. You dominate, I lead. You inspire fear, I inspire loyalty." Pretty words from a dead cat. The Warhammer descended like judgment itself. Lion-O raised the sword and channeled everything: ancestral wisdom, stolen soul energy, Thunderian will, desperate hope, into a single defensive technique. The soul shield manifested, not the flickering 10-second barrier he'd achieved in training, but something more asterisk, a sphere of pure defiant energy that caught the Soul Reaver's blow and held. For 3 seconds, Emperor and Lord were locked in a contest of pure will. The crowd fell silent. Even Raiden watched with something approaching awe. Then Shao Kahn's greater experience told. The Emperor twisted his Warhammer, changing the angle of attack, finding the weak point in Lion-O's shield. The barrier shattered like glass. The Soul Reaver caught Lion-O across the chest, and the Lord of the Thundercats asterisk flew asterisk, hurled across the arena to smash into the wall with force that should have liquefied his organs. He fell in a crumpled heap, blood streaming from his mouth, the Sword of Omens clattering from nerveless fingers. Shao Kahn strode forward, the crowd erupting in bloodthirsty approval. "You fought well for a mortal, but this is Outworld. Here I am absolute. Your team's victories mean nothing. Your honor means nothing. Only strength matters, and I am the strongest." Lion-O tried to rise and couldn't. His legs wouldn't respond. His vision blurred. The ancestral voices were screaming warnings he could barely hear through the ringing in his ears. He was going to die here. They all were. Shao Kahn would harvest their souls, invade Third Earth, and everything they'd fought for would be ash. "Get up," one ancestor whispered. "You are Lord of the Thundercats. You do not fall while your team still needs you." "The sword is within reach asterisk," another voice urged. "One more try. One final technique." "It will kill you," a third warned. "Channeling that much soul energy through a mortal frame, you'll burn out completely." Lion-O's hand found the sword's hilt. His fingers closed around it, and the weapon blazed in recognition. "Then I burn," he thought, "but I burn taking him with me." Shao Kahn raised the Soul Reaver for the finishing blow. "Any last words, Lord Lion-O?" "Yeah," Lion-O gasped, forcing himself upright through sheer stubborn will. Blood poured from a dozen wounds. His body was broken, but his eyes burned with defiance. "Thunder, thunder, Thundercats." He raised the Sword of Omens. Ho! The eye of Thundera exploded with power that transcended simple soul magic. Every ancestor in the sword channeled their essence simultaneously. Not just wisdom or guidance, but their entire being, flooding Lion-O with strength that mortal flesh was never meant to contain. Lion-O's body became a conduit for divine-level energy. His fur blazed with inner light. The sword extended to 3 times its normal length, wreathed in soul fire that burned with the concentrated righteousness of 1,000 Thunderian lords. And Lion-O moved. Not with Cheetara's speed or Panthro's precision, but with the accumulated skill of every warrior who'd ever wielded the Sword of Omens. He was Legion, a single warrior channeling a civilization's worth of combat experience. The sword met the Soul Reaver, and this time the Emperor's weapon cracked asterisk. Shao Kahn's eyes widened behind his skull helm. What asterisk are you? I'm someone who fights for something bigger than himself, Lion-O said, his voice overlaid with ancestral harmonics. You wouldn't understand. They clashed again, weapon against weapon, will against will, stolen power versus gifted power. The arena floor disintegrated beneath them. The walls began to crumble. Even the watching gods leaned forward, recognizing that something unprecedented was occurring. Immortal was asterisk matching Shao Kahn blow for blow. But Lion-O could feel his body failing. The ancestral power was consuming him from the inside, burning through his life force like kindling. He had seconds left before his heart gave out. He needed one perfect strike, one opening, one moment of vulnerability. There an ancestor whispered, highlighting a gap in Shao Kahn's defense, a split-second window where the Emperor shifted his weight, exposing his core. Lion-O took the opening. The Sword of Omens drove forward with every ounce of remaining power, channeling ancestral fury and desperate hope into a single thrust aimed at Shao Kahn's chest, at the keystone soul he'd seen during his vision. The blade pierced the Emperor's armor, penetrated his necromantic defenses, and touched the original Shao Kahn's soul, the man he'd been 10,000 years ago before conquest consumed his humanity. For one eternal moment, Lion-O saw through the Emperor's eyes, millennia of violence, rivers of blood, mountains of corpses, realms burning, souls screaming. Power purchased through atrocity after atrocity until the original person drowned beneath the weight of his own crimes. And beneath it all, buried so deep that even Shao Kahn had forgotten it existed, one spark of the man who'd simply wanted to protect his people. The warrior who'd made his first compromise, then another, until honor became a distant memory. I'm not going to kill you, Lion-O whispered, the sword still piercing Shao Kahn's chest. I'm going to remind you who you were, before the conquest, before the empire, before you became the monster. Soul energy flowed, not to harvest or destroy, but to illuminate asterisk. The Sword of Omens' truth-revealing power flooded into Shao Kahn, forcing the Emperor to confront 10,000 years of atrocity through the lens of his original conscience. Shao Kahn screamed asterisk, a sound of pure psychological agony as his fractured psyche was forced to acknowledge what he'd become. The stolen souls binding him began to fracture, not destroyed but released asterisk, finally free to move on to their proper afterlives. The Emperor collapsed to his knees, the soul Reaver falling from his grip. His armor cracked, his power dimmed, and for the first time in millennia, Shao Kahn looked asterisk mortal asterisk. What have you done? He gasped. Given you a choice, Lion-O said, withdrawing the sword. His own body was failing now, the ancestral power receding, leaving him hollow and dying. You can rebuild your empire on blood and conquest, or you can remember what it meant to be a protector instead of a tyrant. Lion-O collapsed. The Sword of Omens clattered from his hand. His heart stuttered, stopped, stuttered again. Raiden materialized instantly, lightning suffusing Lion-O's body, forcing his heart to keep beating. He's dying. The technique burned through his life force. I can stabilize him temporarily, but he needs healing beyond my capability. Kitana was suddenly there, cradling Lion-O's head. There's one option. The soul chamber in Edenia. It can restore life force by channeling ambient realm energy, but getting him there. I will take them. Everyone turned. Shao Kahn stood, diminished but still powerful, his expression unreadable. The Cat Lord defeated me, not through superior strength but through honor I had forgotten existed. By ancient law and personal decree, the Thundercats have earned their freedom. He raised one hand and a portal blazed to life, not the sickly green of necromancy, but clean white light suggesting Edenian magic. This gate leads to Edenia's soul chamber. Save your lord. And when he wakes, the Emperor's voice carried something that might have been respect. Tell him Shao Kahn keeps his word." Panthro didn't hesitate. He scooped Lion-O into his arms, the team gathering close. "What about getting home? The portal to Third Earth?" "I will research the dimensional breach," Shao Kahn said. "Without deception, without treachery. You fought with honor in a realm that respects only strength. You earned my assistance." He paused. "It may take months, perhaps years, but I will find a way to return you to your home." "Why?" Tigra asked suspiciously. "What do you gain?" "A reminder," Shao Kahn said quietly. "That power without honor is merely tyranny. That conquest without purpose is just murder." He gestured to the portal. "Go, before I remember why mercy is weakness." They went. The portal swallowed them in white light, delivering them to Edenia's crystal forests and the soul chamber's healing energies. Behind them, in the arena of lost souls, Shao Kahn stood alone. The crowd had fled, unwilling to witness their emperor's moment of vulnerability. He picked up the soul Reaver, feeling its weight differently now, not as symbol of absolute power, but as reminder of choices made and costs paid. Baraka approached cautiously. "My emperor, your orders." "Stand down the invasion forces," Shao Kahn said. "Withdraw hunting parties, and send word to Quan Kai and Shang Tsung. They are to leave the Thundercats unmolested on pain of permanent death. You would protect them after they humiliated us." "They defeated us," Shao Kahn corrected. "Honestly, honorably, through teamwork and sacrifice. These are qualities I had forgot." The emperor turned to face his war master. "Tell me, Baraka, when did we stop being warriors and become merely killers?" The Tarkata had no answer. 3 weeks later, Lion-O woke in the soul chamber, surrounded by his team. The pain was gone, his body restored, though the memory of burning from the inside remained vivid. "Welcome back," Panthro said, relief evident in his voice. "You've been unconscious for 21 days. We were starting to worry you'd never wake up." "Shao Kahn?" Lion-O asked. "Honored his word," Cheetara confirmed. "He's pulled back his armies, recalled the hunters, and publicly declared us honored guests of Outworld. Kitana says it's the first genuine act of restraint he's shown in millennia." "He's also researching the dimensional breach," Tigra added. "Apparently, our little stunt in the temple, breaking Shang Tsung's trap, left metaphysical echoes he can trace. He estimates 6 months to a year before he can replicate the portal effect." Lion-O sat up slowly, his body feeling strange, not weak but different. The ancestral voices were quieter now, their power spent, but their wisdom remained accessible. "So we wait, in Outworld." "In Edenia, actually," Kit said excitedly. "Queen Sindel, Kitana's mother, invited us to stay in the palace. It's beautiful, Lion-O, nothing like the wasteland. There's forests and waterfalls, and it doesn't smell like blood." "And Kitana's rebellion?" Lion-O asked. "Paused," Jade said, entering the chamber. "Shao Kahn's change has created political uncertainty. The Emperor has begun releasing some conquered territories, returning sovereignty to realms that have been enslaved for centuries. It's chaos, but," she smiled slightly, "it's the right kind of chaos, reform from within rather than revolution from without." Lion-O stood, testing his legs, finding them solid. The Sword of Omens rested nearby, its eye dim but ready. He picked it up, feeling its familiar weight. "We changed Outworld," he said quietly. "We came here by accident, fought for survival, and somehow we reminded a monster what it meant to be a warrior." "That's what Thundercats do," Panthro said simply. "We fight for justice. Sometimes that means defeating evil, sometimes it means redeeming it." They gathered at the Soul Chamber's balcony, looking out over Edenia's restored landscape. In the distance, they could see Outworld's crimson skies beginning to shift towards something less oppressive. Change was slow, but it was happening. "When we get home," Snarf said quietly, "who's going to believe any of this?" "Does it matter?" Lion-O replied. We know what we accomplished. We survived Mortal Kombat. We faced the worst this realm could offer and held true to our code. We proved that honor isn't weakness, it's strength in its purest form. Thunder, Cheetara said softly. Thunder, the others echoed. Thunder, Lion-O finished, raising the Sword of Omens. Thunder, thunder, Thundercats ho. The eye blazed one final time, its light washing over Edenia's forests, touching the borders of Outworld, reaching across dimensional barriers to remind the cosmos that even in the darkest realms, even in the most brutal circumstances, honor could prevail. The Thundercats had entered Mortal Kombat. They had fought with honor in a realm built on blood. They had reminded an emperor what it meant to be a warrior rather than a tyrant. And when they finally returned home, months from now, bearing scars and stories and hard-won wisdom, they would carry the knowledge that the Thundercat Code wasn't just naive idealism. It was a force powerful enough to change the multiverse itself. In his throne room, Shao Kahn studied reports of peaceful territorial transitions and felt something he hadn't experienced in 10,000 years. Doubt, not weakness, doubt. The healthy kind that asks whether the path you're walking is truly the right one. He looked at the soul Reaver, then at his reflection in the polished obsidian walls. For the first time in millennia, he saw not an emperor, but a man wearing an emperor's armor. Perhaps, he whispered to the empty room, there is another way. The realms held their breath, sensing that something fundamental had shifted in the eternal dance of conquest and resistance. Balance had been restored, not through violence, but through honor demonstrated in the heart of Mortal Kombat itself. Finish him. The Thundercats survived Mortal Kombat through unity, honor, and the unshakable belief that principles matter even when everything seems lost. They changed Outworld not by destroying it, but by reminding its ruler of the warrior he'd once been. And in doing so, they proved that sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemy, it's helping them remember how to be something better than a monster. Thunder, thunder, Thundercats ho.